The Hurling Show, brought to you in association with Torpy. Torpy are leading hurling into a new future with Bamboo, a revolutionary hurley created using their unique engineered hurling performance know-how. Already being used by many inter-county players, Torpy's Bamboo is highly sustainable, offers players greater striking distance and a more consistent balance every time, without compromising on natural feel. Check them out on the Torpy website and in the link below, and enter the promo code OurGame to get yourself 10% off. Michael Verney, we're a little bit sickened this morning, aren't we? And it's not because of hurling, it's because of the Ireland soccer team getting done up by Ronaldo last night. What a performance, but God, that was heartbreaking.
It was sickening to watch, yeah. We were doing a bit of training last night, so when he got the last few minutes of it, and was actually just checking on Twitter just before I got into the car, and obviously we were going really, really well, and you're just watching the last few minutes, and you're just thinking, especially when he got that first goal, you just know, and you've played matches and you've watched matches as well, where you know that the result is almost inevitable. You just know that something is going to happen, and just two absolutely picture perfect headers, but just absolutely sickening. For fairness to them, I probably didn't really see the performance coming because, like, all known form that we'd seen in recent games, it wasn't there, and they left everything out there. It was a brilliant performance, and just two sucker punches at the end is absolute sickener.
Yeah, and I was going, looking forward to sewing it into Man United fans about how Ronaldo was basically a statue for the first 86 minutes of the game, and then he goes and scores 2 goals, and now all of a sudden, I hope he's not going to be doing that for United for the year. But hey,
it was funny. It was funny as well because Tony O'Donoghue was interviewing him after, and Tony was still talking, and Ronaldo had just gone at the end. He thought the interview was over, and he was just going into all the fans or whatever. It was just ridiculous after when he's taking the top off, and it's just like, and the referee was almost fawning over him as well. It was crazy.
Yeah. He's looking for a birthday card from him. But
come here. Here's just on that, like. It's definitely a fact that the really good GA players are refereed differently, and it's difficult for referees with. I'm just going to, for a couple of examples, like players of the stature of, let's say, a Henry Shefflin or a Brian Wheelahan or a Joe Canning. It's perhaps only natural. Referees are fans at the end of the day. It's perhaps only natural that, particularly in club games within a county, that they're going to probably idolise a lot of those players and give them the benefit of the doubt, much like the referee gave Ronaldo the benefit of the doubt, it seemed, on every occasion last night.
Yeah, sure. Didn't Joe Canning talk about it after the 2012 drawn All-Ireland final, and then that created a bit of a hoo-ha heading into the replay? Like, he definitely talked about it at that time. And did he use the term unsporting? Now, obviously, it was blown out of all sort of context, but that's the way things happen like that. If you're a big name player, and if you say something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, we'll say that might happen. But unlucky to Ireland. We'll move on to all things hurling matter. And I agree with you actually on the referee, because I think referees like to be liked. People like to be liked. So you're going to be trying to be a people pleaser, and most people will go with whatever the big name thinks. So it's nearly easier to do that. Like even Ronaldo, the fact that he smacked across Dara O'Shea. Now, it was embarrassing, the reaction from Dara O'Shea to go down holding his head when he caught him there. But, they didn't even go to VAR for it, because, that might have ended up being a red card. Anyway, we've loads of stuff that we'll probably
Quick one for you. Have you ever seen a GA player take their jersey off?
It must have happened.
I feel like it could have happened. It's definitely happened in training or something, particularly when you were younger. But I just wonder what the reaction would have been like, what the reaction would be like if a GA player took off their top after scoring or something like that.
It could only really happen with a last-second goal to win something, could it?
No, because you'd get sick and the ball would be poked out or the ball would be kicked out and there'd be a goal or a point or something got while you're still putting your shirt on. I don't even know if there's a sanction in the rule book for taking off your jersey, to be honest with you. But hopefully we'll never find out. Okay, well, look, we've lots coming on the show here, and in terms of red cards, there might be a few over this. We're going to do the power rankings. Obviously, Limerick are going to be number 1, but we do have to see who's the best of the rest. We're going to be talking about the merits of Shane O'Neill staying in Galway, because the talk is that he might get a 3rd year. Patrick Horgan talked about proving people wrong next year. Well, everyone thinks you're class, so I don't think you're proving anything wrong. And we're going to look at the best 15 not to win in All-Ireland during the 21st century. There's a few obvious ones. We're going to limit it to
no more than 5 players from any one county, because it might just get a little bit silly. And it actually adds to a bit of debate if, for example, Waterford had maybe 10 candidates and you might have to start picking between them. So that'd be interesting. And we're going to look at some of the club action coming up around the county. So Shane Healy says, Jesus, no hurlers on the 90s did anyway. Bit harsh. Are the power rankings really just who would put it up to Limerick the best, says Kieran Fennelly. And Shane Power, when we see the power rankings in title, we all know Tip will be first and Callan and Hurler the year. Thank you, Shane Power, for that. Appreciate that. Will we go straight into the power rankings? So Limerick are at number 1. That's not up for the debate. And I don't think anyone would question that. Now, if Liam Cahill had to get the Tipperary job, I think would we be putting Tipperary number 2 here?
Oh, I think you'd be putting him, but you'd only be putting him 2 on potentially. I think you'd have to see it before he could.
But
and plus,
what, the team full of a load of All-Ireland winners?
Which under 20 and under 21 All-Ireland winners?
They won an All-Ireland in 2019. So most of the panel has an All-Ireland.
I think, yeah, potentially. If Liam Cahill was there, if Liam Cahill was there, I wonder how many of the 2019 All-Ireland winners would still be involved, potentially, as you said.
I'm going to go and look, because I'm not going to have you casting aspersions over Tipperary hurling.
But just a quick one on what one of the viewers said, and I think it's a very fair question. Is number 2 the team that will put it up, that we think will put it up best to Limerick? Do you know what I mean? Like, can you put a team number 2 if you think that they'll beat everybody else, but you don't think they'll be able to put it up to Limerick? Do you know what I mean? It's an awkward kind of a question, you know?
That's a fair point in terms of you couldn't make it Waterford or Cork, but Tipperary got closer than anyone, losing by 5 points. So I agree with you. Right, I'm going to go through that Tipperary team of 2019. Brian Hogan will still be on the panel. Cathal Barrett will. Barry Heffernan will. Ronan Maher will. Brendan will be gone. Pádraig Maher will see. Seamus Kennedy will be there. Noah McGrath, I'd imagine he'd be there. That's 6. Breen 7. McCormick 8. Bubbles 9. Niall O'Meara 10. Jason Ford 11. Callan may or may not. John McGrath will be 12. Mark Keogh, Willie Connors, Jake Morris. Ger Brown might be back in again. And then all those underage winners as well. So I'm not really sure what you're talking about.
I do think there would have been I think potentially there would have been a lot more movement in the squad, and potentially people off the squad are retiring if Cahill had been manager. That's just my own opinion. I think he would have shaken things up an awful lot.
But the oldest of the guys that I named there is Noah McGrath, who's still 30, and then the other lads are like, some of them are 27 and 28. So I included that, yes, Paddy Maher is going to be 32. Seamus Callan will be probably 33. So maybe they're iffies. But like, I've named 18 or 19, 17 or 18 lads otherwise that would still be there. So they got closest to Limerick last year, and you've still got most of them going to be around that have won All Ireland. So, you know, what's your point?
My point is that none of us would have seen the droppings of Noel Connors and Maurice Shanahan when Cahill came into Waterford. So I would have expected something similar in Tip, if not more severe.
So surely power rankings are based on stats, not what ifs, says Chris Quinn. An interesting question for you lads. If Cahill had left Waterford, would we then be lower down in the pecking order? Possibly so, because
I think so, yeah. Because you're placing a lot of stock into potential. And Waterford have an awful lot of potential with Cahill at the helm for next year. There would have been a lot of change, and you wouldn't, like, we know what we're going to get from Waterford aside from the Clare game this year. You know what you're going to get from them nearly every day. If a new manager come in, you wouldn't know. So I think that's a fair point, yeah.
Okay, let's make a start on these rankings and see what way we're going to go with it. So I'm going to put Limerick in as number 1. No question about that, which is a pretty obvious thing to say.
Where do you start here at number 2?
I mean, okay, let's do process of elimination. So can it be Cork?
Beaten by 8 points by Limerick in the Munster semi-final, beaten by 16 in the All-Ireland final. Beat Clare, beat Kilkenny. Yeah, who did they beat in the quarter-final, actually?
They beat, what's it, Cork? Wait, no.
Was it Clare in the quarter-final?
Dublin.
Yeah, like that wouldn't blow you away. Apart from Kilkenny would have been the only team they beat that would be in the top 3 or 4, shall we say?
Arguably.
Yeah. Okay. Arguably.
Yeah.
Wouldn't blow me away. I definitely look at probably Waterford having better form. Probably would look at Waterford having better form and Waterford having a better chance. Like it's always saying they match up well with Limerick and are looked at as one of the best teams equipped to beat them. They were beaten by 11 in the All-Ireland final last year, 4 in the Munster final last year, and 11 again this year, wasn't it?
Yeah, so over 3 games, that's 26 points combined defeats.
Yeah, like 8.66 recurring. That's what they've been beaten by on average. So
and did they look like winning any of them?
Not really. No, not really. They had their spells against Limerick.
Got hammered in 2.
Yeah, they had their spells in it. Waterford's a funny one. Waterford is potential-wise, and you're thinking that potentially Cahill can bring them another step, and you're thinking next year maybe that De Borca will be back, maybe that Stephen O'Keefe will be back as well. So it's more on potential. I don't know. I definitely don't think it's definitely far from a foregone conclusion of giving them number 2 anyway. So we'd have to go through the merits of a couple of others.
Yeah, I mean, Sean O'Brien did well in the goals this year for Waterford, I think. I think he did pretty well. Like, I wouldn't be hanging any major mistakes on him. I know Sean or Stephen O'Keefe is really good as a sweeper keeper. And, maybe he can evolve to actually start carrying the ball out a little bit further again. I think that's the next evolution with goalies, to maybe do a light version of what Niall Morgan and Rory Beggan did in the Ulster football final. I think you're going to have to become a very mobile keeper now, who might even be slightly getting involved in the play. I'm thinking Owen Murphy is the best equipped to do that next year.
When will that happen? When that will happen, and is happening now? When will somebody be caught off their line in a big game, or something happen where they end up with egg on their face, or a bad clearance from out in the corner and the ball is hitting into an empty net, and owl fellas everywhere will throw their hats they'll throw their hats at the floor in disgust?
Well, I think it has to happen sooner rather than later, and you're probably just going to have to accept that there's an element of a gamble to this, and it might just be an absolute disaster. Do you know what? I'm going to bring it up on screen here. The reason that I think that evolution is going to have to happen in hurling. So I haven't necessarily prepared doing this, but we'll go for it and see what happens. So let's say a ball is coming in from here, okay, right? And you've got the full back line there in green, and you've got the inside forwards like this, and the half forward line, the half back line is way out here, as was the case when Cork were playing Limerick. And if a ball is coming all the way in now, I haven't fully prepared all of this to people, as you know, but let's say a ball is coming in like this, and there's nothing but space in there, and you have a goalkeeper standing back here doing nothing. And we saw the Cork half back line were pushed out. They did what they were told. They came all the way out. Like, you've got 3-on-3 back here. So it was Niall O'Leary, it was Robert Downey, and it was Sean O'Donoghue. That sort of a setup. Like, at what stage do you start thinking, we can't leave those lads with 40 yards in front of them? Maybe we've got to get the goalkeeper. And when I play full back, I always tell the goalkeeper, stand 15 yards out, because I want you to just get in the eye line of the corner forward there, so he thinks that I might start pushing for possession. Like, it's easier said than done, what I'm saying here, because the amount of space on a hurling pitch is absolutely huge. And unlike Gaelic football, the ball can travel 40 yards in a second. And if a ball goes in there and the goalie's off the line, a lad can just turn and knock it in, because it just travels that far. But I think at some point it's going to get to a stage here where goalies are pushing out, maybe even 21 yards out, maybe even slightly further, just with the notion of clogging up the running lanes. You know the way Jason Sherlock did that for Dublin there for a few years, and people were getting a little bit annoyed with it. And then obviously the Mayor Furness were, stopped going out on the field, just so there are those kicking lanes for goalkeepers. But I do think that even if they don't get involved in the play, that goalkeepers are going to have to come out and become a distraction, just so there isn't all that open space, maybe to block an old run. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to get in your way there, Seamus Flanagan, or something like that. Because you can't really have 15 players on the field, leave the 3 lads at the back thrown to the wolves, and just have a goalkeeper standing there watching it. At some stage, he's going to have to get involved. And that's why I mentioned Owen Murphy. He's played outfield both for Glenmore and in college. He could be able to do it. The question is, number one, do you agree with that sort of evolution? And number two, can you see any other goalkeepers being capable of it?
Well, it's definitely something that has been slowly happening over the last couple of years. Now Nicky Quaid doesn't do it generally. Yeah. He'd be an option for a hand pass back maybe or something like that, but he wouldn't be sweeping around. I suppose a lot of it is what are the strengths of the goalkeeper that you have? And I love the fact that Tyrone have recognised that one of Niall Morgan's strengths is that he can be really comfortable on the ball out the field, that he can contest with a forward for a ball if he has to. Same with Rory Beggan. Cody probably realises that Owen Murphy is not being allowed to express himself enough unless he's doing what he's doing, sweeping across the full back line. So I don't think you'll see it everywhere, but I think where the personnel suits that type of system, I think you will see it. And it does make sense. No more than you were saying there about clogging up space, no more than, the full forward or corner forward having their hands up, the hurl up, moving across the line. It's just, you're making someone think that the space is not there. Same with a keeper could do a similar function at the back.
Yeah, because there are times when you look up as, when you've played in the half back line, you look up and if you see space, you're thinking, brilliant, here's where I can pop the ball. And if you had a goalkeeper who had a little bit of electric pace, and some of them do, you could imagine Patrick Collins, he looks like a quick enough player when he comes out with the ball, he looks really comfortable. Maybe physically he's not quite as big as a lot of the inter-county outfield players that you might see. He can obviously add a few stone of muscle onto him. But I just think it'd be very interesting because full back lines can't continue to have that done to them. It's grand having a sweeper and all that, but he can be bypassed by all the good teams these days. So maybe it's just trying to find another way to maximize what you have out there. But like you said earlier, at some point it will go disastrously wrong. It nearly went wrong for Rory Beggan, only for he got back unbelievably well. But Owen Cahill, for example, your own clubmate, he plays out the field for Offaly. But could you see him potentially being able to do that if he was asked?
He'd kill me if I put him back in the goals. They always say that he's going to be the next Borough goalkeeper, and he takes the head off me. But without a doubt, someone like him would definitely be able to do it because he would be and then he would be Offaly's as well. They're probably the most comfortable player on the ball outfield. So if he was playing that role, you're maximizing him as a goalkeeper, but also as an outfield player. You're saying, listen, you can go to the 45 as well. Lads can find you, we can spray a ball over to the far side and you can take shots from far out. And I just think it would pose a really interesting conundrum for teams, particularly the attack of other teams. They're going to have to push up to make sure to stop this from happening. And then all of a sudden the game gets even more interesting and it gets more kamikaze style almost, as in there's more chance of real exciting kind of things happening. And I think it's if you have the right personnel, I definitely think it's something that could work. It's not something that you're going to see, it's not just going to be in the championship next year, but there's already been, Alan Nolan scored a point from play, didn't he, in last year's championship? Stephen O'Keefe got one, I think, the year before. Those are things that we never would have seen before. So they are slowly happening. Again, the caveat is whether you have the right person to do it. And that's why you're probably seeing a lot of outfield players going back to the goals as well. And let's just say someone for example, Noel McGrath. When Noel McGrath finishes with Tipperary, he could do something like that with Lockmore for years, even if his legs were gone to some extent, just because he's so clever and you'll be able to find him and know that if you hit him the ball even anywhere around the 45 or he picks up the ball and sweeps in the 45, he can hurt you from that far back. So yeah, I think if you have the right person, it could definitely something that could work.
Yeah, I remember goalkeepers that have played with me in the last year or two. I just said to them, come out just right until the opposition, the person who's going to deliver the ball, if they're around their own 65 or midfield and you can see they're looking and they've spotted you, that's when you hair back. But I want you out 14 yards up until that point. And it definitely does help because as a full back, you often get just so isolated. And it's so difficult when you have to stand goal side. So you're more or less behind the full forward's shoulder on one side or the other, depending on which way the goals is. But it's just nothing but he's got the low ball in front of him, he's got the low ball to the left, he's got the low ball to the right. You're kind of done every which way. The only one he probably doesn't want in that situation is the one hanging up high, because then as a full back, you can try to just spoil and let it through to the goalkeeper. But you do have to find ways to do it. And even looking at the Gaelic football matches the last couple of weekends, watching Shane Ryan play out on his own 65 as Tyrone are taking the kick out the other end. And I remember Owen Murphy doing this for Kilkenny against Cork a couple of years ago. He was standing out not far off the 45 to block up those running lanes, because the way Cork they hit it into grass for the puck out. So yeah. I just think it's coming.
As well as that, Shane, having the keeper, in a relative close proximity to you allows you to go gung ho for a ball as well. It's like having a sweeper Like really, that's it. Like it allows you to go toe to toe with your man, and you're less kind of cautious maybe about committing yourself. If you know, at least if the ball breaks behind, there's going to be someone there, i.e. your keeper.
Yeah, a couple more comments in here. Owen Douglas, lads, I would give Waterford second or at least third. Nice pacey side. A lot of the panel won a minor All-Ireland in 2018. That will win an All-Ireland within 3 or 4 years. Was it minor All-Ireland in 13?
13 and 21 All-Ireland in 16, wasn't it?
Yeah. Shane Power had come in and just clarified that. James Daly, I'm a Limerick man and we have to go to Ennis and Páirc Uí Chaoimh next year. So hard to predict who the number 2 team might be, as every game next year will be savage. Waterford, for me, a real threat if all that fits. Just a question on Waterford, says Shane Power. With Tadhg de Búrca, Pádraig Mahoney and possibly Saki, which is Stephen O'Keefe, coming back next year, do you think we can finally go the extra step and end the famine?
A lot of it depends on Limerick, to be honest with you. If
they can't, well, I mean, this comes back to the power rankings then. Are Waterford number 2? Do you feel confident that Waterford would beat every side beneath them en route to an All-Ireland next year, more so than the others?
Well, Tip are one of the sides that would probably argue are second or third. They beat Tip in this year's championship. They beat Kilkenny in last year's championship. So like, I think when push comes to shove, like taking Tipperary's first half performance against Waterford out of it.
Against Limerick or Waterford?
It's against Limerick, sorry. When Waterford have all their best personnel available to them, I do think they're the best equipped side to beat Limerick. But isn't it mad that we're saying that about a team who's been beaten on an average of 9 points when they've played that side? That's just how good Limerick are.
Yeah, no, it's true. To be honest, if Tipperary had their management sorted at this point, and we could look ahead and think, well, because of this type of manager, you can expect this from Tipperary last year, or history tells us that this, that, and the other. And we don't know who's retiring and not either. I don't think we can have Tipperary at number 2 here. I think it's going to have to be Waterford. Yeah, look, if Tip played Waterford next year and the right man's in charge, I think Tipperary win the game. But I know not everyone is gonna agree with me on that one.
But there's always, like Shane, there's always going to be a sense of loyalty as well. It's like if you ask me, can Offaly beat whoever? As long as I'm not like jumping like completely to the other side, there's an innate part of you that's going to think that, and there has to be.
Yeah, it's true. And look, Waterford do have the scores, and they do have the runners, and they have everything that's required for modern hurling. And there's more probably next year in Jamie Barron. Like, he showed flashes of it, but he didn't get a full run into the season. I think there's more in Ozzie Gleeson. Will Tadhg de Búrca come back the player he was? I mean, he's absolutely sublime when he's fit. And then will Iarla Daly, who was injured this year, kick on another level? What do you expect even from Pádraig Mahoney? It's going to be tough with his sort of injury history. And is he the type of player that Liam Cahill will want for the running game?
Just a quick one on de Búrca. We all can take it for granted that he's going to be back next year and at those levels. And it has to be commented on the hours and the work that has to be done behind the scenes for him to come back. Like, he came back in outrageous shape last year. He was better than ever last year before that cruciate. And I just think it does have to be said, like, there's a lot of quiet hours, lonely hours by yourself that you're putting in to make sure that you get back to that level again. But obviously, past history would tell us that he probably will. On the Pádraig Mahoney one, Pádraig Mahoney's, I suppose, he wouldn't probably be the paciest Waterford player, and Waterford's game is based a lot around pace. He's brilliant on the ball. If you give him a yard, he'd score. So it's going to be interesting to see where he fits into that. Potentially, it could be off the bench when a game has opened up a bit, but and somebody else, I mean this in the best way possible, someone else has done that 50-minute shift or that 55-minute shift to allow somebody else to flourish. But I'm not sure, particularly after all the injuries, whether he fits in as a starter for Waterford at the moment. But we've shown how big the finishers are now as well, like, and maybe he could start as a finisher and slowly like work his way back into the 15. But I do think it's going to be difficult enough for him to get back in. He's played very limited time under Cahill, just the early stages of the league. And well, in fairness, it was around September, October that he did the cruciate at that time. But there's a lot of water under the bridge since then.
And then you have to wonder, if you look at the subs that they used against Tipperary last year in the quarterfinal and against Limerick in the semi-final. Are the finishers that they're looking at lads who can run at you when a game opens up a bit? Think Darragh Lyons, who go in midfield. Michael Kiley's made great impacts. Neil Montgomery, brilliant when he came on against Tipperary. Patrick Curran. It might be one of those things where you and I would recognise Pádraig Mahony's quality all day, but maybe he mightn't fit into what they're doing. Now, the thing is, we would have been let know by now at this stage if he wasn't going to be part of the panel at any stage. So I do presume he fits into the picture. In terms of a hurler, yeah, class. And he probably does deserve an opportunity to show can he fit into that style too. But that's not to say he will, because, Maurice Shanahan was dropped before he ever got an opportunity.
Yeah, there are several ways to skin a cat though too, and I think Liam Cahill was using the pacey options that he had at his disposal. He probably didn't have a Pádraig Mahony. He probably didn't have a player really that was going to come in and be able to hurt you from 100 yards maybe. So he could have 3 or 4 pace options, and he could also have somebody who's going to float around when the game opens up and beat you that way too. So I think he'll definitely get a chance to show what he can do, and it could be another potential string to their bow.
Lads, let's start the second team at number 5. There's no one near Limerick's as Dennis Noonan. Do you know what? To be fair, he's got a bit of a point there. Patrick Hickey, Waterford always seem to find a way to lose on the big days.
I don't know about that.
Or do they always lack the quality?
I don't know about that. The big days, Galway were a good side in 17. Limerick were, one of the best sides we've seen in recent times last year and this year. So I'm not sure. The big day. I don't really agree with that, to be honest with you. In 08, they lost to either the best or the second, but probably the second best team of all time, probably the best team of all time. So I'm not sure about that, to be honest with you.
Okay, well, just look at their other All-Ireland final appearance. So 2017. I mean, they were in a position to win that game, and they didn't. Look at the Munster finals since last winning in 2010. They lost 11, 12, 15, 16, and 20. So they are losing finals, they are losing finals regularly.
Do you think that's a psyche, or do you think it's a lack of quality?
I'd say it's more so to do with quality and the opposition they're up against having a little bit more. I think they do so much right, but let's look at and I haven't kind of screened this beforehand, but let's look at the scores they put up in these Munster finals. So 2011 scored 19 points. That's not going to win you any finals. 16 points in 2012. 16 points in 2015, 13 points in 2016, 21 points in 2020. There's a bit of a common denominator there, isn't there, in terms of what they're scoring?
Lack of goals would jump out off the page to you, and lack of goals
and points.
Yeah, but particularly though, if 213 is a lot better, 221 is a lot better. But and goals is something that they've really struggled to get against Limerick. Have they scored a goal against Limerick in their last 3 meetings against them? This year's All-Ireland semi-final, they didn't get a goal. Last year's All-Ireland final, last year's Munster final, and that's from a team that's able to get goals against everybody else. Yeah,
well, even the 2 All-Ireland finals of recent. Well, look, actually the 3. We'll go back to 2008, even though it has no relevance to the current team. Scored 113 in the 2008 final, 217 in 2017. Not too bad, but you need more than that to win an All-Ireland, and then 19 points in 2020. So scoring on the biggest days has been a problem for Waterford. Is that a psyche thing? Is it a quality thing? Is it a bit of both? I do think that Waterford generally have 1 or 2 positions on the field where the opposition can target, or there's a little lack of quality. And throughout all those teams, I think that's what's let them down. That's been the common denominator, which, culminates in you not scoring enough because you're just not quite as rounded as the opposition. But people, get your comments in, because that's one definitely worth talking about. Adam Dennehy asks, are you going to predict that Peter Duggan will play for Clare next year? How far off if he comes back? Not much. So he has been back and been doing okay already for the club.
Yeah, he put up a big score for Clooney Quinn the first weekend out. I think there was around the Clare matches during the week, because I think 6 Mile Bridge beat Wolf Tones last night and beat them fairly convincingly. I think they've 6 goals in their 2 games so far. But Peter Duggan is still only, he was young in 2013 when he was on the panel. He's still, mid to late 20s, only around 27, I think 27-ish, I think. So there's still plenty of time for him, and he's the sort of lad, it's not as if he's been doing nothing or anything either. Plus, the last 18 months has been different. There's probably hasn't been as much maybe inter-county training collectively as previous years. So I'm sure he was doing, I think it was out in Perth he was. I'm sure he was doing plenty of bits and pieces. He's the sort of lad that would definitely keep his shoulder to the wheel and be doing things. And if he's coming back in and fitting in with club games and performing well, that would suggest, and that would give him a nice run into going back in with Clare too. He wouldn't be coming in cold in November and like that. He'd have a decent body of work done. So I don't see any reason why, if he wants to be there, like he'd be a huge addition, and it would take a bit of time during the league to bed back in. But like he was at his best in 2018. He was sensational.
He was unreal, and Adrian McGrath says he scored 12 or 13 points in the first round of the championship. Shane O'Donnell has also reappeared for Éire Oak, which is a huge thing. And does that feed into the conversation that we want to have about Clare and the pecking order here? If they did what they did this year without an all-star in Peter Duggan from a couple of years ago, yeah, fair enough. We don't know if he'll hit the same heights again this year. And Shane O'Donnell, who we know is a class act, especially if he gets a nice bit of ball. Like, add those two guys into the squad there, and all of a sudden it's looking fairly rosy with Brian Lohan.
Big time. I tell you what do we say about a lot of counties? We're not sure exactly what we're going to get on a given day. It looks like generally under Lohan, you know what you're going to get every day, and that's a full-blooded commitment. Like outside of Patrick Collins' save from Tony Kelly, Clare would have been the ones going through the back door, and who knows how they would have got on there. But there's definitely a lot of potential. Like Rory Hayes looks like he's only getting better. Kyle Malone looks like he's only going to get better. Diarmuid Ryan is after bedding in at wing back. John Conlon surprised everyone at centre back. Ryan Taylor is only getting better in attack. So their graph is definitely on the up. You'd have to say that. You would have to say that. The only reason Clare were further down the power rankings than maybe some people would have thought is because we thought Cork would beat Clare. And they did, and Clare were a bit further back. But at the end of the year now, and with Lohan having another 3 years ahead, and potentially two marquee forwards coming back, they're definitely in the equation. We probably need to. So we've agreed Limerick 1, and we've agreed Waterford 2.
Yeah,
the conversation around like 3, 4, 5. You're looking at
Cork, Tip, Waterford, Kilkenny, Galway, Dublin, because Dublin did beat Galway, so that kind of brings them into that conversation.
Where do you honestly think Tip come into this conversation now? Honestly, now take the blue and gold hat off for a second, and you're actually wearing kind of blue and a bit of gold trim and all today.
Bit of trim.
Like, where do you think they honestly come into the conversation? Especially as we have this conversation on the morning of Thursday, the 2nd of September, where Liam Cahill is not coming to Tip, and we don't know who's managing Tip, and we don't know the personnel that are going to be involved next year.
Well, you see, this is the thing. Liam Cahill was the only person who's got he had the best CV coming into this conversation. So then, who else has inter-county top-level experience? And you'd say Darren Gleeson has it with Antrim last year or two. And that was going okay, or certainly obviously did very well with the Joe McDonough. The league campaign this year suggested that things are flying on. And then obviously they ultimately, they sort of had a very poor performance against Dublin in the Leinster Championship, got hammered. And then they got relegated with a bit of a non-performance against Laois for a lot of the game. Now, they made a right burster in the middle of the second half, but it wasn't a good performance. And you'd say, other than that, is there enough experience there? Because you'd like to see someone maybe over a few club teams and do well, or maybe over the under-20s and minors and do well. So, there just probably aren't that many people who you'd say, well, that's a very obvious manager to step in. We know we're going to get there. If you're Kilkenny and Brian Cody steps down tomorrow, how many different options do you have where you can sort of confidently say he'd do a good job? We've seen proof there. Henry Shefflin's won 2 All-Irelands. Eddie Brennan's got a lot of experience. He's done quite well. Oh, look, there's David Herity. He's done well with
Kildare. DJ, Michael Verney.
You can keep naming them. But like with other counties, that's probably just not the case. And you know what? It comes back to those Kilkenny clubs have done quite well in championships. Obviously Ballyhale being as strong as they are, that has definitely given a good platform for us to see what Henry Shefflin is about. But within the Tipperary Club Championship, there aren't all that many guys who are putting their hands up and saying, give it to me. Like Brendan Cummins could be brilliant, but the thing is, we just don't know. We just don't know because he's had involvement with Laois and Kerry. And like, because the Liam Cahill thing went the way it was, I do believe that Tipperary need to get a manager who's not just good, but a name, so that everyone can kind of get behind it. And then obviously the onus is on that person to get a really good coaching team and delegate properly and all that kind of stuff.
You're saying basically there needs to be a spring in everybody's step when the manager is announced.
Yeah, but not a world-class management team a la Bobby Robson and Steve Staunton. It's got to be for the right reasons. So this is why I've kind of gone a long-winded way to just say that there aren't too many obvious answers to this one for Tipperary at this point. So I see a comment there from L689, Micheál Donoghue to tip a runner. And instantly I think Tipperary aren't going to get an outside manager. Now, I as a Tipperary person, I am open to the idea of an outside manager, but I don't know if it would happen because of what other people would think and because of the county board. But I think Micheál Donoghue, because he was involved previously during the Eamon O'Shea era, I wouldn't entirely rule that out. I wouldn't, but I do think that it probably won't happen. And all of this comes back to, it does leave Tipperary at a little bit of a shaky moment. Players will retire. Can we bring through the rest of the guys who were so good underage? Like, they need to be brought through. So if you don't have the right man there, they actually won't come through the way they should.
As good as Micheál Donoghue is, and he obviously he got Galway to the promised land after, 29 years. Would that be a bit of an indictment of, coaching management in, personnel or quality in Tipperary if they had to go outside at this stage? They've never gone outside.
I wonder, how does it reflect on the club championship? In terms of so I said too for a long time, I think Tipperary too often are tactically behind. The hurlers are always there, but tactically a little bit behind. And maybe that's something that's borne out from the club championship because, I talk with different lads who've grown up in the Kilkenny County Championship, and and I'd love to hear other people's opinion of this, but they talk as if tactics have been going since they were under 16, minor, that sort of thing. And I'm just not sure that that's there to the same level in Tip. I do think it's catching up a little bit, by the way. I definitely do think. But it's maybe that generation of players that came through, I don't know, the 2010 era and ever since, when they're retired and have had a few years of coaching, that we might see it in the same way that Kilkenny are starting to see that right now. Because, if Cody had to leave in any of the last 15 years, would you have had that many obvious lads to step in? Yeah, there's probably a couple of candidates. There probably is. But nowhere near what there is right now. And maybe Tipperary, because they've had sort of the generation that won a couple of All-Irelands, maybe when they come through in the next couple of years, maybe that's going to be the case. But maybe not either.
Can I just say something as well? Because it sprung to mind when you mentioned about Brian Cody there. Has Brian Cody staying on with Kilkenny helped an awful lot of people, an awful lot of guys, an awful lot? Henry's been able to go and serve an apprenticeship elsewhere. Eddie's been able to go and serve an apprenticeship. Michael Fenley, David Herity, DJ, all guys that if Cody had left in the last 10 years, they probably would have been parachuted into a job a lot quicker than they would have wanted.
Definitely a fair point. But then, is that the case in other counties? It didn't help out Meath, for example. Sean Boylan was there for 24 years, and Meath were circling the drain for years.
Yeah, but Mickey Hart was with Tyrone for so long, and then Brian Dewar and Fergal Logan come in and have them in All-Ireland in their first year, and they were I was up at
Peter
the Tyrone.
Canovan's an option. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
Peter Canavan was able to go and serve an apprenticeship with Fermanagh. Ryan McMenamin was able to go and serve an apprenticeship with Fermanagh that maybe otherwise wouldn't have happened as a coach, as selector, and as manager. I just think it's an interesting one. It has definitely given them more time. Like, how often has it happened where guys have ended up in a job much sooner than they wanted to be? As I was saying, I was up at the Tyrone presser the other night, and someone asked Brian Dewar, "Did you think 10 months ago that you'd be Tyrone, that the Tyrone would be here?" And he was like, "To be honest with you, I didn't think 10 months ago I'd be involved in management." But he's gone long enough now. He's been able to go off and do the 21s, and now it's time for them to be involved in the scene. I just think it's an interesting one. As much as some people give out about how long Cody has stayed, there's definitely loads of successors now waiting to come in, which you couldn't have said probably maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, because outside of who are the club managers that are really standing out? And I mean across the board the last number of years. You could say Matty Kenny, he's obviously in a county job now. Shane O'Neill, he's in a county job now. Even go back a few years before that, Stephen Rochford, he won an All-Ireland with Corofin. He ends up managing Mayo. So this is a really good stepping stone. Within Tipperary have not won a Club All-Ireland since 1987, Bursley, of course, famously. And, nobody else has won it. And now the guy who took Bursley, now a lot of people are involved in making that happen. But like Johnny Kelly was the manager, a Galway guy. And I couldn't see that happen. I couldn't see Johnny Kelly being installed as Tipperary hurling manager. And to be honest, like he's obviously been passed off for the job with Galway too at this point. He's involved with Michael Verney there in Offaly. But there's no one else putting their hand up in the last couple of years in terms of getting beyond that and winning the Club All-Ireland. Like Thurles got to an All-Ireland semi-final, but really Thurles should have gone farther and harder as far as I'm concerned. So I think that is the problem too. Like, are there club managers around the country now whose hands are shoved mad up in the air thinking this guy needs to be installed as manager outside of Henry Shefflin?
No, probably not, to be honest with you. Probably not, in fairness. It's definitely interesting. We're after doing some amount of segueing away from this power rankings, I can tell you that. But I do think it's a very valid conversation to have with regards to Tipperary. So for me, there's too much doubt over Tipperary at the moment. If you're going to say if they played Kilkenny in the morning, would they beat them? Well, they wouldn't have a manager to select the 15 at the moment or pick a squad. So I'm not sure if they play them next year in a championship game. It's hard to know. A lot does depend on who comes in. So 3, 4, 5. We're talking Tip, Kilkenny, Cork. How far down do Cork fall based on that All-Ireland final?
Yeah, okay. Sorry, just one other segue back. On about club teams with modern tactics, you're probably looking at Ballyhale, Ballygunner, etc. These top club teams are nearly using better, more modern tactics than some inter-county teams. I fully agree.
Ballygunner have made themselves. Ballygunner would fit into, to definitely fit into Division 2A and, playing the 12th, 11th and 10th best teams in the country. They're so hard to beat. They've made themselves so hard to beat in Waterford and beyond. And
yet haven't won a Club All-Ireland, which is, that step is probably going to have to happen pretty soon for them if it's going to happen with this generation. So, right, we're saying Limerick 1, Waterford 2, yeah?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Okay, so then we're looking between Cork, Tip, Kilkenny, Dublin, Galway. I don't think we're putting Clare up there in that particular bracket just yet.
No, how much will the All-Ireland final affect Cork in the short term? While in the medium term, it might be a great thing for them. I can't have Cork at 3 anyway. I'll tell you that. I can't have Cork at 3 just because there's questions over, some personnel now, obviously outside of Patrick Horgan, whether other guys will be back as well. The under-20 success and the minor success is great. And back-to-back under-20s is savage, but that just does not happen quickly. It just does not. It's going to take a bit of time. So I think Cork are minimum 4 for me.
Yeah. Do you think who else could have done that first half against Limerick? This is why I'm pushing for Tip to be number 3.
Based on all evidence I've seen, I don't know. I don't know if there is another team. The only other one that has come close is probably the first 20 minutes that Kilkenny produced against them in the 2019 All-Ireland semi-final. That's the only thing that even comes close, I would think.
And even the question about that is, how different is Limerick 19 versus Limerick 21?
Yeah, poles apart. I think that game is like when Donegal beat Dublin in 14. I think Limerick have systematically changed since then. They've made themselves even more difficult to beat. As said, Aaron Gillan had probably one of his best years in 2019, but they were over-reliant on him, and they realised they were over-reliant on him, and they no longer are. There's loads of different people that can chip in, and the ball ends up in a different person's hands nearly in every attack. So they have changed a lot since then. So I couldn't envisage that happening again. Now, saying that, if Kilkenny had played in the All-Ireland final, there's no way Kilkenny would have been as naive as Cork. There would have been 12 bodies behind the ball. There would have been, and they would have soaked it up and started building and got themselves into the game. So I think it's a tight run thing between Kilkenny and Tip.
Are you suggesting that Kilkenny wouldn't get hammered in an All-Ireland final like they did in 2016 and 19?
I know I'm not not to the same extent that Cork would have. Not that Cork got beaten so naively. I know Kilkenny were beaten naively in 16. I don't think they'd be that naive again. Like the Cork game, the Cork All Ireland quarter final in 18 or 19 would definitely suggest that they're not that tactically naive, where they were under all sorts of pressure, looked like they were going to get ran out the gate, and just dropped like 10 or 12 lads behind the ball, stuffed out the Cork attack, and started building again. But I think it's a tight run thing between Tip and Kilkenny, I think, for that third spot.
Well, Cork have beaten Kilkenny, so I mean, we can't ignore that. We can't
ignore that. No.
Yes, Cork have to go ahead of Kilkenny. They have to. They just beat them a few weeks ago, and actually should have. Like, they were 6 points up late on in the game, and they got a bit of white line fever, and then they kicked on again in extra time.
Yeah, a lot. The All Ireland final changes a lot, though, Shane. Do you know?
Yeah, but you like, we can't, like, Kilkenny weren't good enough to get to the final, and Cork did. You know, and like, if you look at Kilkenny's run this year, they beat Wexford after extra time. Then they beat a COVID hit Dublin, and then they got beaten after extra time by Cork. So I'm not really sure what else you're going to say sort of pushes the Kilkenny case here ahead of Cork, who got to the final.
Who do you think has more optimism going into 2022? Cork or Kilkenny?
Cork.
Definitely. Even
look at the under 20 say.
Just hold on a second now. Even in spite of, like, I'm talking about next year, in spite of an All Ireland final hammering and the demons that they would have to battle over the next God knows how long.
I honestly think, like, have you ever been hammered? Have you, like, playing for
several times?
Yeah, you have. And has that given you a psychological hang-up every day since, or have you ever moved on from it and atoned for it?
Yeah, it took me a bit of time to move on for it all, like.
Yeah, well, look, I don't think players are going to hang on to this forever, and they're going to have, like, months and months and months, and they might lose again to Limerick next year. But what we've seen is that they can beat Kilkenny. So they had a psychological hang-up having not beaten Kilkenny at Croke Park since 2000, was it 4 or 5? 2004, wasn't it?
4, I think, in the final, yeah.
So they've shown they can overcome these hang-ups. And, like, their trajectory is going up, as I said all year, and I just the forward power they have and the youth they have coming through. Compare that with the players coming through for Kilkenny. Now, like Mullen and obviously Owen Cody look like a touch of class, but it's not like they have 1,000,001 brilliant players coming through at the moment compared with Cork and what they have. So I don't see a case where you'd have Kilkenny ahead of Cork here.
And while TJ Reid and Patrick Horgan are the same age profile, you could envisage Patrick Horgan playing and still been very mobile in the next 2 or 3 years, whereas TJ, there's definitely there's far too much of an over-reliance on him. No, listen, I definitely wanted to argue the case anyway, because I do think the All-Ireland final does have a big bearing on next year and how Cork go into next year. But, like, who are we talking for number 3 then?
Well, first off, James Maher says, bit strange to ask an Offaly hurler, was he hammered? More suited to ask, did you ever win a game?
We won a few, in fairness. We won a few.
Okay, so I think Cork probably have to go ahead of Tipperary here. So I'd be looking at Cork 3, Tipperary 4, Kilkenny 5.
Oh, yeah, funny enough.
How can you put Kilkenny ahead of Tipperary?
No, I'm not. I'm actually not saying that. I'd probably be putting Tip ahead of Cork if I'm being honest.
You put what?
I'd probably put Tip ahead of Cork.
You know that that's music to my ears.
Yeah, but you don't believe. I get the sense that you don't believe.
I think if Tip met Cork tomorrow, I think it would be a flip of a coin. If Tipperary pick up the right manager, I can see Tipperary beating Cork next year. But they're further down the line in terms of transition over because of the same players from 2018 and 19 under 2021. Their guys all have 3 or 4 years experience. The Tipperary guys don't. So it's just kind of, are they moving slightly in different directions? I think Cork will be better again next year. Big question marks over Tip, where they'll go. I mean, the quality's there. You can't go that far ahead of this Limerick team and not have class all over the field. It was just the balance of, did you use enough of the younger players? Did you get them on soon enough? Absolutely, you did not. So your chances faded. So I can see why I'd have Tipperary 3, definitely. I still think Tip could beat Waterford if they had the right players on the field as well. So there's nothing between a lot of these teams.
No, there's nothing. You could throw a blanket over. You could throw a blanket over Tip, Cork, and Kilkenny realistically, but we're going to have to probably nail our colours to the mast for number 3.
Yeah, have Cork done enough in terms of like they've gone on one run this season? And
I don't think
Clare...
so. I don't think so. That's what I'm saying. We're basing it just on this season. I don't think they have done enough, to be honest with you.
So we're putting Tipperary in at number 3.
I put Tip at 3. Yeah.
Yeah, you've twisted my arm there. You all saw it. He twisted my arm. Let's see. Clare beat Tip, ? Says Mark Cochran. There must have been an earlier conversation that we're missing out. Obviously, Tipperary beat Clare in the championship this year. Pádraig Gill, Tip lucky the structure is the way it is. Otherwise, they'd struggle to hold Liam McCarthy status. All Munster teams, along with Wexford, Dublin, KK and Galway, are all better. Worrying for the Premier.
Oh man,
And
I actually think there's plenty of potential for Tip next year, providing the right setup is in place.
Martin Furlong says, lads, you're desperately overrating Kilkenny. Realistically, will they win an All-Ireland in the next 5 years? Probably not. Will Cork? Probably yes.
That's why Kilkenny are going to be at 5 realistically.
Yeah.
In this debate, I'd have Cork in 4 and Kilkenny 5.
A reminder, we're brought to you by Torpy and the Bamboo Stick. If you want to get that and get 10% off, use the promo code OurGame. So go to torpy.com there. Also, if you do want to get this on audio podcast, go to patreon.com/OurGame. A great way to support the channel. Obviously, we want to kick on into the future, and it'd be great if people could support us there. Plenty have already gotten involved there. And also, something that's absolutely free to do and really would help the channel is if you hit the subscribe button. It's give or take around there. If you're watching on YouTube, obviously subscribe to all the different channels on OurGame. That'd be brilliant. But it's completely free to subscribe on YouTube, and the more people that hit subscribe, the more other people it's recommended to. And obviously we want the channel to grow, so it'd be great if people could do that because it doesn't cost a penny to do it. So just jumping back in again, Michael, there you dropped off just for a second. Verney being complimentary towards Tip, has hell frozen over?
No, I just think it's been realistic. Like, would I be that shocked if Tipperary won an All-Ireland next year? No, I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be that shocked. I think there's probably only 4 teams, I'd say realistically, that can win an All-Ireland next year, and that's Limerick. Well, we haven't put Galway into the equation yet, but we don't know exactly what's going to happen with Galway. And with Joe Canning gone, can Galway realistically win an All-Ireland? I'm not so sure, but I would have looked at the top 4 of Limerick, Waterford, Tip and Cork as the 4 that can realistically win an All-Ireland at this point in time. Now, maybe I'm being slightly generous to Tip in the sense that we don't know who's managing them next year. But I'm not fully sold on Cork yet. Yes, I think there's a load of potential, but I do think that the All-Ireland final annihilation will have a lot of scars for them.
Yeah, let's talk about Galway because Shane O'Neill, well, where they come in the pecking order, but Shane O'Neill has completed 2 seasons. Underwhelming, I suppose, is the way to look at it. They have been 2 COVID-riddled seasons, so that's made it difficult for him. There are some players that were coming towards the end, and obviously Joe Canning has retired, so it wouldn't have been smooth sailing for him. The talk is that he might be offered a 3rd season. So as we talk about where Galway are in the pecking order here, do you think it merits a 3rd season for Shane O'Neill?
Yeah, hard to know. Like first season was good in fairness, and there was a lot of league probably didn't start off hectic. He used an awful lot of players, got big numbers out there. Probably found out his squad and got to know the personnel available to him, and they produced a couple of decent championship performances, particularly that game against Tip, and a good performance against Limerick, and they were with Limerick down the stretch, which no other team has done really. In the last couple of years outside of that Kilkenny game. But like this year was just a disaster. No point in saying any different. Just a really underwhelming performance against Dublin. Like one of the worst halves of hurling against Waterford. Just like they got going late on, but like the start as bad as they did, considering how bad they started against Dublin, and just to not get any sort of a bounce for that first half against Waterford. The game was nearly over at half time, and now the best hurler of a generation, potentially the best Galway hurler of all time, is gone from their squad. So there's loads of young talent, and I have waxed lyrical about Brian Kincannon and others in particular, young talents coming through. But they do have an awful lot of questions to answer. Like that was the old Galway this year. that was the old inconsistent. We don't know what we're going to get on a given day, Galway. That had been essentially gotten rid of. I think Micheál Donoghue, under his reign, they were
a consistent team, weren't they?
Yeah. There was no like clangers thrown in. You knew what you were going to get. And I think that's kind of a worrying thing. That's a worrying thing for O'Neill going into his third year. Like, how much is he going to shuffle the deck now this year? And obviously losing a leader like Canning from the dressing room as well. There's an awful lot of questions to answer.
Yeah, but if you do look through the team, there's a fair spine there. I think Darren Morrissey has come in. I know he got injured in the last game, but I think he's a player of good quality. Pádraig Mannion didn't look himself this year. Maybe he was carrying an injury, maybe not. I just think there's an awful lot more in him. Daithí Burke, maybe he'll go back to full back. I mean, we did talk about moving him out to centre back to drive the team forward. In terms of the impact that had, negligible at best, I suppose. But like, just even looking at the back line, Shane Cooney has kind of, I think he's settled in the back line there. I think Darren Morrissey's good. Grode McInerney, there can be a role. There has to be a role for a 6'5" monster like him. Pádraig Mannion, Daithí Burke, even moving up the field, Cathal Mannion, Conor Whelan, Brian Kincannon. Like, you're naming a lot of good players there. Evan Nyland. There's definitely the nucleus of a very good team. A bit like Tipperary. They just need to kind of rejig it a little bit, add a few little extra panels to the team.
Can I just say, how much are they missing Johnny Glynn now, do you think? How much are they missing somebody to have that outlet, to have someone that does a lot of the real dirty work for other people? You're naming out loads of unbelievable players, but, a lot of the time they're not seeing enough of the ball in these big games, and they've been kind of, just been kept quiet in big games that they shouldn't be. Maybe because they need, they need a couple of more dogs in the forward line maybe than they have.
Yeah, I mean, Johnny Glynn's only 28. He only just went at 28. And I mean, it'd be just about not using him the way they did in 2018, which is every single ball high and hanging. And then Mike Casey, clever fullback, just spoils him. If you use him the right way, I mean, what an asset to have. Next year, says Shane Power, could be the year where Conor Whelan becomes the captain, takes over the mantle from Joe Canning and leads the Galway attack. He's been the standout when others have failed, that's true.
He was brilliant this year, Shane. He was brilliant this year when the majority were poor.
The Donny 99, Munster will be a minefield next year. Hand pass needs to be looked at. Throwing gets more blatant. There is definitely a question on that. We're going to do a piece on that very, very soon. Have Cork become the new Galway in terms of consistency?
I don't think, in terms of inconsistency, I think it said, or it could have been inconsistency.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, Cork were consistent this year. In fairness, they were just blown away in the All-Ireland final. So I don't know. I don't know if that merits. We'll have to get more evidence before we can kind of make a proper argument on that.
Sylvia M. Are Clare ahead of Kilkenny?
Good question. Good question. In fairness, beating a score by Cork, and I think Clare could have done something similar to what Cork did after that. I think Clare would have beaten Dublin if that's the way the draw worked out, and I think it would have been a flip of a coin against Kilkenny if I'm honest. So maybe there's more of a debate needed there. We have kind of 1 to 4 sorted. Maybe there's a serious like, you're looking at 5, 6, 7. You're looking at Kilkenny. I would say Kilkenny, Clare, Galway, and
Dublin beat Galway 2 of the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, true. We had Galway at number 2 at the start of at the end of the league. And we still had them at number 4 or 3 or 4 post that Dublin defeat, because I don't think we overreacted. But with Canning gone, is it time for them to fall well down the table?
I think so, because Clare are moving in the right direction. I think Dublin are moving in the right direction, and if they've beaten Galway in 2 out of 3 years, the only reason we'd keep them down below Galway is tradition, isn't it?
I don't know. Like, Dublin have beaten Galway twice in 3 years. In fairness, they have. Could Dublin beat Cork? No, they haven't. Could Dublin beat a lot of the other teams that we're going to put ahead of them? I don't think they could, and statistically it would show that they haven't in recent years. Could Galway beat a lot of the teams ahead of them? Yes, they could. Yeah. Not just talking on a given day. I'm talking about they have beaten them in recent years. So I'd be reticent to overreact too much to Galway. Like for me, Galway can't be lower than 7, I would say.
And
Can't be.
But by the way, we should mention with Clare that they did beat Waterford. Waterford had their issues, but every team has their issues going into different games. Clare were puck of a ball away from beating Cork. I mean, one save from Patrick Collins away from being through to the next round, like you said. They definitely had the harder route, seeing as they were in the first round of Munster, compared with, Kilkenny were in a semi-final of Leinster, which is clearly weaker than Munster in terms of like team for team and who's been winning the All-Irelands the last number of years. Are Clare ahead of Kilkenny here?
Make sure this has been recorded, because I think so. Yeah, I do think so. Like if you look at the graph of the team, Kilkenny, they still have that kind of never say die attitude, and they were able to pull a result out of that Cork game when it didn't look likely. But like TJ Reid is getting older, Killian Buckley's getting older, Walter Walsh is getting older, even like Joey Holden in the subs is getting older. Richie Hogan, will we see him next year? That's a lot of big personnel. Whereas and their graph is kind of steady. Whereas Clare, their graph is going up, in my opinion. So I have no issue with putting Clare 5.
Okay, so if that's Clare 5, and we're thinking Clare ahead of Galway, I think you kind of nearly have to.
I think so, yeah.
The trajectory. And, okay, so Dublin, I think, have to remain below Kilkenny for sure, just because they've won the last couple of Leinster titles and they're getting further in the championship every year. That's not really up for debate. And so you still want Galway ahead of Dublin. Yeah, you kind of said that. You have said that.
Yeah. Would you be happy with Clare 5, Kilkenny 6, Galway 7, Dublin 8?
Wexford 9, Laois 10, Antrim 11? I think we've kind of settled on it.
I think so, yeah. Like Wexford, where are we? Wexford 9?
Yes. Like
Wexford have doubts as well, and we'll probably get into it a bit more. It looks like JJ Doyle is the front runner now for the Wexford job, but and he's obviously native, which would be a difference, a change probably of tack compared to recent appointments. But it's we don't really know where they're going to go from here. And they showed glimpses this year, but just not enough to say that they're any much higher up the table, I think, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Bazzaroni says, is this the Munster hurling show? I mean, you're a Leinster man, dyed in the wool. A Kilkenny man suckling at the teeth. An Offaly man suckling at the Kilkenny teeth.
No, I just think, can't see Kilkenny winning Ireland. Could Clare I'll put it this way. Do I think Clare could potentially go on a run and win an All-Ireland if everything fell in place? Maybe.
Clare?
Maybe, yeah. No, if everything fell in place. I think they have as much of a chance as winning an All-Ireland as Kilkenny have.
Okay, so that gives us our power rankings. Limerick number 1, Waterford 2, Tip 3, Cork 4, Clare 5, 6 Kilkenny, 7 Galway, Dublin are 8, Wexford, Laois and Antrim make up 9, 10 and 11. That's quite something.
Who would have ever thought that I would talk Tip up from 4 to 3 and then talk Kilkenny down from 5 to 6? Just shows anything is possible.
We've got the top 5 counties are all Munster.
But is that just realistic to what the current landscape is?
Yeah, and ML89 says somehow in the bookies Galway are second favourites. Don't know how this is. Nor do I. Especially
with Canning gone, it's a strange one. Even though I think there was some special offer there, 50-1 for Galway to win the All Ireland after Canning retired. I think for a limited time only.
Yeah, I'm not sure too many people would have taken that up. Well, what about JJ Doyle to Wexford though? We have him ranked 9th here. He's done his stuff with the under 21s. I know that's 4 or 5 years ago. Well, sorry, probably 6 or 7 years ago now at this point. But there is kind of an absence of obvious candidates, a bit like Tipperary. So Derek McGrath was talked about it. That doesn't seem to be happening. There was talk of Darragh Egan. There was talk of William Maher. That talk has kind of died down a little bit. We'd kind of mentioned maybe John Myler. Maybe he'd go back there again. Jason Ryan, of course, who was the former football boss.
Was definitely in the equation anyway at one stage, heavily in the equation.
Have you heard kind of discussions that maybe they want a Wexford man in there?
What I said to you at the show last day was what I was categorically told is that they don't want a Kilkenny person. That's what I was categorically told. So I don't know about getting a Wexford person. I think it has to be the right candidate. JJ Doyle would have been to me, the only viable Wexford candidate that I would have seen standing out. While Jason Ryan is a former Wexford manager, he's obviously a Waterford native, although he's involved with Glen Barntown this year and he was involved with them last year. I'm not so sure about that, Shane, to be honest with you. JJ Doyle does also have, though, that I think he's a GA development officer in the county.
He was a selector under Davy Fitz, so he knows all the players, he knows the setup, he knows what it takes.
It does make sense. Be very interesting to see, like, are the outside voices the ones that are going to be close to him now? Like, who are the coaches going to be? Are they going to be native coaches if he does get the job, or are they going to be, outside coaches? I think it's always more, it'll always be more forgiving. You can bring in anybody as a coach, really, can't you? Like,
I think so.
If it's a native manager, you can bring in anyone. So it'll be interesting to see who they bring in. Obviously, Davy brought a massive profile and kind of a massive public swell of support there, particularly in the early years. So it'll be interesting to see how they try and kick on from that and build on that. But like, our Wexford been a bit found out somewhat at this stage. Like,
what do you mean?
Like, we know what they're going to do now. We knew over the last couple of years generally what they were going to do. They've fallen well down the pecking order at the moment. We haven't seen that many new players introduced into the fold. Will the sweeper remain? A lot of question marks for what they're going to do in 2022.
Here's a question for you: has Davy Fitz left the Wexford county team in a better standing than he found it, or did he get some success, but push him so hard and basically drove it so hard that the wheels came off?
Difficult one. It's hard to gauge it from the outside. You need to probably know what it's like in there. Are those players fatigued, or are they fresh and ready to go again next year when that call comes? He definitely brought them to an unbelievable high in 2019, but they didn't limp out this year like they did last year. But definitely wasn't the Wexford that we were accustomed to in the early couple of years. And that's why I do think they've been, I don't know if found out is the right way, but maybe been sussed out a small bit. And it's going to be interesting to see how their style of play evolves, or if it evolves at all. Will Kevin Foley go back as an orthodox centre forward or midfielder now, or will he still be playing sweeper? It's going to be interesting to see for them over the coming years.
Yeah, Martin Furlong, which sounds like a Wexford name to me. JJ Doyle has been successful with every Wexford team he's been involved with. Numerous Camogie All-Irelands and successful with the under-21s. Young hurlers are there, but Davy didn't pick them. Flash says Davy could have had an All-Ireland in 19 and probably should have won one after Limerick had been knocked out by Kilkenny. The last 2 years definitely don't help his legacy there, though. By the way, JJ Doyle, in 2019, when all the question marks were there about whether Davy would stay on or not, he was kind of posted as the bookies' favourites back then. So it's not like this is the first time that his name's been in the equation either. So I wonder, would he be interested in getting it? I wonder. I'm sure a lot of people do have an interest in managing their county, obviously.
Yeah, and obviously if he's involved with the Camogie, he's involved with the under-21s, you would imagine.
Suggests ambition, doesn't it?
Yeah, and this is like he's done brilliantly with the Camogies. That was Wexford's kind of golden generation of Camogie with Kay Kelly and Ursula Jacob and all them. Like, so I'd imagine this was the goal at the start. This is more than why we said that's why we thought Liam Cattle was going back to Tipperary. This is the ultimate goal, I'd imagine, to manage his county.
Yeah, Patrick Horgan was talking to the Examiner this week, and he talked about looking to prove people wrong. And I mean, you and I kind of both thought, oh, who has he to prove wrong? Like, nobody thinks he has to, he has anything to prove. And he goes, even before the game last week, obviously against Limerick, there were questions of that, and I was saying I'll play as long as I'm enjoying it. I've probably enjoyed hurling more this year than I've enjoyed it. So if that keeps happening, there's no reason to get anywhere, really. So, he's 33, but he's still playing really, really well. And he was one of the few lads who had a pretty good final. Considering the ball that went into him, he still managed to get a couple from playing the first half. One or two of them were just out of this. Well, one of them for sure underneath the Hogan stand was out of this world. So there's no reason for him to be going anywhere or be wondering about proving anything.
None whatsoever. And unlike TJ Reid and Kilkenny, I'd say the supporting cast should be getting stronger over the next couple of years as well. And there looks like there's a few obvious people to kind of take the mantle off him or take the pressure off him, really. I don't agree with Flash. Huggy needs to hang it up. We'll never get a better chance than this year, sadly. I don't like obviously he wants to win an All-Ireland, but I just think he'll stay going until like he feels like he doesn't have, you know, an awful lot to give to it anymore. Wouldn't be surprised next year if we see maybe during the league, you know, someone else hitting the frees from time to time, or particularly him being off the field a small bit and somebody else picking up that mantle, because that is something that's going to have to be passed on over the next couple of years as well. Same in Kilkenny too. Like they've had maybe Alan Murphy and different players hitting frees in times. Like, there has to be a succession plan in place for when he does go. But based on this year, there's no reason to suggest why we shouldn't see even more of him and see some really like exciting stuff over the next couple of years.
So that all brings us to the next question that we kind of had. We were talking about beforehand, and somebody sent in a comment. I just can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but essentially the question was, what name the best 15 not to win in All Ireland in the 21st century. I'll actually double check. It's no harm to mention the person who sent in the comment, because
it's a
very good idea.
It's an awful task, because there's so many good players, and even just thinking about particularly the amount of Waterford players, like you'd have to cap, you know, you'd have to cap any county's number of representatives on this at 5, because you could have 12 Waterford lads.
Yeah, it was Patrick Coleman who sent in the request, so we're very happy to do that, because it's a very good suggestion. And look, as ever, keep the questions and suggestions coming in. We're happy to tackle most of them. Now, where are we starting in goals? We obviously have to.
Yeah, well, Anthony Nash would be the obvious one, because I would be fairly confident in saying that he's the only goalkeeper that hasn't won All Ireland that was nominated for Hurler of the Year.
Okay, and look, people, get your comments in and let us know if there's somebody else. There's definitely people we could be talking about here. Brian Murray, I suppose, won an All-Star in 2007 for Limerick, so he's certainly worth mentioning in there. Is there anyone else for the goals that we...
Stephen O'Keefe definitely deserves a big mention, but I think if you're looking at the myriad of options from Waterford, I think he's a bit down the pecking order. Like, we'll go through some of the greatest players that have ever played that haven't won All Ireland, have been represented the Dacians. So David, obviously, Alan Nolan, I think, worth to mention in recent years. Gary Maguire from Dublin also definitely.
Joe Quaid played up until 2002, but I suppose we more think 90s when we think him.
Yeah, Joe Quaid definitely deserves a mention there too. Some of the the greatest saves that were ever pulled off, probably when Hurling was a bit different too. Kind of hard to go against Nash, I think. This might be one of the easier spots to pick, to be honest, because some of the rest of them are going to be horrible.
Yeah, and someone says Owen Murphy, but of course he did win a couple of All Irelands for Kilkenny, so we can't find a way to squeeze him in. Now, cornerback options, and people even preempt us here. Start throwing in your suggestions, and we'll bring them up on the screen as we go along. Who did we have as the options? I know even the likes of Owen Murphy won a cornerback slot. An All-Star, a cornerback for Waterford back around 2007-8, that neck of the woods.
Yeah, David Collins obviously won Young Hurler of the Year in 2005, I think.
And won an All-Star in 2012.
Yeah, won an All-Star in defence as well. Noel Connors is a 3-time All-Star. We just have to think, where does he come into it in the list of Waterford greats there as well? From Limerick, someone like Damien Rail.
Damien Onrail.
We all remember those battles with Owen Kelly. In the full back line there, probably Peter Kelly as well. Peter Kelly's an unfortunate one. It's kind of like unfilled for potential, just how good he could have been.
The injuries.
Yeah, it could have been so good. Fergal Moore's an all-star cornerback, obviously, as well. I think, like, realistically, like, number 4 is nailed on Ollie Canning, isn't it?
Yeah. There's no real debate about that one. I just throw him up there abroad and left cornerback.
Like, it's just, so good. Like, we were talking about, not many. I think Nisha had a comment last week about, or on Monday, about how many cornerbacks have been in the Hurler of the Year conversation, and Ollie Canning would have been, and you would have been talking about him as one of the best hurlers in the country in a given year at a given time, and he's a cornerback, so that's saying a lot.
What about that? Owen O'Donnell for fullback.
Oh, that's a good one.
I mean, off the top of my head, I hadn't thought of it.
Yeah,
like he's there since 2016, so we're definitely going to be naming other players who've got 5 seasons or fewer. So,
well, I'll put it this way, Shane: if we were picking the best fullback in the country now, which we might do at another time, tell you, he's going to be very, very high in the conversation. Very high in the
Wow.
conversation.
Like, can anyone name a better fullback than him? I mean,
That
okay.
hasn't.
That hasn't won an All-Ireland.
No, there can't be a better fullback now that hasn't won an All-Ireland. Conor Prunty could get there in time.
Yeah.
If Waterford don't win an All-Ireland.
Do you know what? I hadn't been expecting this one to come in. That's a really good one.
Yeah.
God almighty.
Stephen Lucy's a good comment in there from someone as well, as another Limerick fella that hadn't won an All-Ireland too. But
yeah, and Liam Ryan for fullback, very underrated.
Oh,
He's been really
definitely
good for Wexford.
Liam Ryan's class, yeah.
But
Liam
but
Ryan
if you were,
he'd be in that fullback conversation too.
if you were given a straight up, Liam Ryan or Owen O'Donnell, who are you taking?
I'd be going for Owen O'Donnell because I think he's Liam Ryan is robust, but I think Owen O'Donnell is so dynamic. Like he could pick up anyone, any shape or size he could pick up.
Yeah, man, woman, or beige, he could pick up. I think.
I wasn't expecting him now, I have to say, and that's why fair play to everyone who drops in a comment, because there's only a certain, like, it's great to have just different opinions and different people coming in. But like O'Donnell's been there, as you say, 5 or 6 years. It's just really unfortunate that he was missing that Laois game in 19, that he was missing the games this year. Like Dublin's championship could have been an awful lot different if he'd been playing the Leinster final, if he'd been playing that game against Cork as well, you know.
I think we have to name Owen O'Donnell here.
I'm happy with that, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I'm happy with that. Yeah.
And fair play to the viewers, and honourable mention to the likes of Liam Ryan, and I'm sure one or two other names will come up, and we'll be thinking, oh, why didn't we mention him? Maybe even someone from Waterford, or plenty of other counties. So number 2, then, who's getting the right corner back?
Well, like we've named
Shane O'Neill from Cork. God, I hadn't thought of him.
But you know what?
He was brilliant for years.
Shane O'Neill, to me, gets such a bad rap over that 2013 replay final. He was
thrown to the Wolves.
Yeah, thrown to the Wolves. He was a brilliant cornerback. Remember him and Milan having a league battle one time? It was just like one of the best forwards coming up against one of the best defenders, and it was just a joy to watch. Remember O'Neill blocked them down twice, I think, and Milan still put the ball over the bar. But he was so good. His Cork career ended far earlier than it should have. Pádraig Keeshan has a good one in there. With a name like Keeshan, he must be Offaly. But Rory Hannafy handled many top quality forwards and poor Offaly teams. I'd agree, and I definitely have him in the conversation at either 5 or 8 or 9, without a doubt. Yeah, he definitely comes into the conversation. As regards this other cornerback spot, like
Noel Connor.
Yeah, but see, this is the thing, right? Like there's so many other Waterford. You're going to have to leave out a couple of Waterford legends. You are. But we're picking a team. We're not putting Ken McGrath corner back. Do you know what I mean? And we're not putting Tony Brown corner back. I think Noel Connor's a 3-time All-Star, isn't
he? He's definitely at least 3.
Yeah, I think he's a 3-time All-Star. Like Noel Connors had Patrick Horgan in his pocket there for 2 or 3 years, and he had most of the best corner forwards in his pocket. I'd be happy with Noel Connors at cornerback. The only thing is, I'm not happy at putting him number 2 because he's an out and out number 4 off the left side as well. But Ollie could definitely play 2 if he had to.
And what about Damien Unreal?
Damien Rail, yeah, but Damien Rail's not an all-star. You're comparing him to guys who are, these are the really, really elite kind of cornerbacks. It's funny that we're naming Owen O'Donnell, who's not an all-star.
Yeah, but I mean, you and I have said a few times about how maybe he should have got one. Yeah. So we're not necessarily going to go along with what other people think. There was mentions of Dara Ryan of Wexford there as well. I mean, what a great player he was.
What a player.
Yeah, and
injury ravaged as well. Such a the white helmet. What a player.
Yeah, what about Declan Root?
Skippy Root, another white helmet. Yeah, centre back. What a player.
White helmet and white hair underneath it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the Silver Fox. I don't know when we come to the cut and thrust of the lads that are going to be, really, right in the equation. While their eyebrows are going absolutely 90.
Someone put a fly on my head quickly.
Yeah. If we're looking, like, the half back line is stacked.
Yeah. Look, throw out a few of the options there, and people will start commenting in on it.
Well, like, you could have an all Waterford half back line if you wanted, of Tony Brown, Ken McGrath, and Fergal Hartley, with the Brick Walsh potentially thrown into the mix as well. Other players there, Kevin Moran obviously was a half back. Brian Geary from Limerick could be another one. Rory Hannafy that we mentioned, half back or midfield. Liam Rush is an all-star. centre back. Mark Foley is an all-star wing back from Limerick, obviously. Other ones there. Mark Coleman is an all-star wing back from Cork. Matt O'Hanlon from Wexford, another player without an all-star who I think would be high in the reckoning too, particularly with the limitations that we've put on this with only 5 from one county. But they're some fairly outstanding. Kieran Carey wasn't mentioned, and we should be thrown out for that alone.
Was his best stuff in the 90s?
Yeah, the caveat of this was like this is the best team that hasn't won All Ireland since the millennium, basically. Like it's the last 20 years or 21 years, including now.
Yeah, and some people are commenting with players that probably did predate that. So it is about the 21st century, and some players will kind of straddle the two lines. Joe Quaid and Kieran Carey are two names that came up straight away in that. But we are going to keep it to 21st century, and like Michael said there, players who probably had their best in the 21st century. I'm just going to throw Ken McGrath in centre back because less of the messing.
Yeah, we're going to be left with an awful conundrum here, of which Waterford legend we're going to have to leave out. But yeah. Ken McGrath is not being left out.
Yeah, I'll walk off the set in Piers Morgan style if I'm told that Ken McGrath isn't in this.
We're going to what we'll try and do with the Waterford lads is have a balance to the lines of the pitch, I would say.
Yeah. Well, we have Brick down here as a midfielder. You could put Brick anywhere, but do you leave out Dan Shanahan? Do you leave out John Milan? I mean, don't tell me you're leaving out some of these boys.
Do you leave out Owen Kelly?
What are we doing to ourselves with this?
Yeah. Huh? Tony Brown, she can't leave out Tony Brown.
You can't. Right wing back?
I like your style. I like your moxie. Now we can only pick 2 more Waterford players.
Well, look, we might be able to later on. We might say, look, X and Y have to go in. So unfortunately, that's you out of wing back, and someone else comes in. What about David Collins? We talked about him already with Galway winning the Young Hurler of the Year in 2005 and an All-Star in 2012. There probably can't be too many others that have got the same sort of CV.
No, not. I'm talking about mentioning Rory Hannafy. In fairness, as good as he was, he doesn't have All-Stars. He was nominated for a couple. Never got Young Hurler of the Year. And that's a lot to do with the Offaly's stay in the championship and how much further Galway were going to get in the championship with better Galway teams. Rory Hannafy would have been playing in inferior, probably Offaly teams.
Mark Foley won his All-Stars in 96 and 01, so he did win one in the era we are talking about.
We're still playing in 07. He was still playing the Gaelic grounds when we beat them in 07, but I would have said probably maybe some of his best hurling would have been at the start. I'm not sure. Who are we looking at here? One of the commenters had in Sambo McNaughton, which is going back a different generation.
You're being voted for number 2 here.
No, number 4, Mark. Number 4, left corner, off the left side.
Okay, Ollie Canning, you're out. He's in.
Ollie, Ollie, you drive over the bridge in Portumna into Burr, and I'd say throw me out. Does Matt O'Hanlon come into this conversation?
I think so. He's been so prominent. Like, when did he make his debut for Waterford? It must be. Wexford. Wexford. It must be a long time ago now. Is it? He's not far off 30, and I'd say he's there. I'm going to try and look it up here.
The guts of a decade, I'd imagine, yeah? The guts of a decade. He
made his debut in 2011, so he's been playing for a decade there. He generally gets the man marking job, really tough jobs, and more often than not does it very well. Had some great battles with Joe Canning and TJ Reid over the years, and I bet you if you were to ask them who were some of the toughest lads you marked, I would say they'd put him right up there, which in itself says something.
I think you have to you can't just be going on like he would have been with Wexford through some lean years, and even the last couple of years have been tough. I don't think he can be totally blinkered by guys that have appeared in All Ireland finals. I think you need to look a little bit deeper. That's why Neil McManus comes into you're not going to see him on All Ireland final day with Antrim, but you're going to see him absolutely ripping it up all these other days and scoring mad tallies in league games. Like he's doing it the whole year round, and it's a lot less glamorous.
Does Tony O'Gregan come in?
Yeah, probably comes in. He definitely deserves to be mentioned. I just think it's unfortunate for lads that they're coming up against in those 2 slots anyway. 5 and 6 are coming up against Tony Brown and Ken McGrath, which is just the best of the best. In fairness, do you know what I mean?
Dennis Ryan says, brilliant show as usual, lads, but why cap a team representatives at 5? After all, it's the best 15 players not to win in All-Ireland, irrespective of where they're from.
Yeah, I understand where he's coming from. But like we could have ended up with 10 or 12 Waterford lads. I just don't. Well, I don't think it's as interesting, to be honest with you. It's just one of the big
Yeah,
reasons.
no, I'm kind of
We
with
could
you
just
there.
pick a best Waterford 15 to have won All Ireland. You
Yeah,
know.
and it's to some way it's kind of it doesn't give the respect to maybe other teams as well if you're just gonna because it's nearly the safe thing. It's like last week we picked Limerick 2021 versus Kilkenny 2008, picked a combined 15, and you just wouldn't accept the argument of Seamus Flanagan may have had a better year in 21 to Shefflin in 2008, even though you couldn't back up your argument. It's just like it's Shefflin. We can't not pick him, so we can't not pick all these Waterford lads.
No, a lot of it is that I can't, remember exactly all of those games from 2008. If I look back at them, I maybe look back and say, maybe you're right. Or I'd look back and say, Sheffield done way more than just on the scoreboard. Do you know what I'm going to do? And I'm going to sicken you. Over the next month or two, I'm going to find those 4 games and I'm going to look back at them and I'm going to say, no, hey, listen, you're wrong. He set up 1-5 in this game. He set up 1-6 in this game.
And you know what, people, keep an eye out. Kind of attack him on that. Make sure he does. Tied to Burka 2 All-Stars, young hurler of the year, says Brian Kennedy. Very fair point. Again, will he lose out because of will we call it a Waterford conundrum? I think
we will pick a Waterford 15 another time. Is that fair enough? And that will be interesting in itself.
Yeah. Brendan Murtaugh been mentioned here from Westmeath. Tony Griffin coming up. Alan Markham also been added in. Andrew O'Shaughnessy. Brian Begley was crucial getting Limerick to the final in 07. Was injured most years. Had a great 01 as well. No All-Star though. Philip Mahoney is also mentioned for Waterford. I mean, this comes back to it again. You could mention as many Waterford lads as you like. So again, that wing back slot. What are you thinking? Are you looking at Mark Foley? Are you looking at Matt O'Hanlon? Are you thinking?
I'd probably for someone like Matt O'Hanlon if I'm honest with you. I would, yeah. As I said, a lot of his hard work was done away from the cameras a lot of the time, and it was in maybe lower grade kind of matches. But when he's gone up in recent years against Joe Canning, as you say, any of these big marquee men, Matt O'Hanlon to me is he's a perfect defender in the sense he's the perfect height. He's about 6'2" or 6'3". He's big and strong, but he's also mobile enough that he could pick up, a fast player. I think he's the perfect man marker almost in many ways.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't disagree too much with that. Shane Dooley, Offaly's been mentioned. We'll obviously get to the forwards in a while.
Yeah.
Austin Gleeson, he's in there too. No doubt he'll come up in the conversation. And most of these players would not like to come into the conversation. Shane, can we stick you in a wing back? Reckon you do a job against the Biffos of the Dublin Club Championship? Derek Hardyman, all-star half-back. Yeah, he was certainly in the conversation. And I do feel like we've kind of glossed over David Collins a little bit. And look, it is repeating the point, but young hurler of the year and a 2012 all-star.
Yeah,
Peter Kelly almost, Liam Rush, Niall Corcoran could have been a shout at cornerback.
Yeah, we've been a bit, yeah. I'm a big Matt O'Hanlon fan. In wrestling terminology, I'm a Matt O'Hanlon mark. I think I really like what he does, I have to say.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, that's the backline and the goalkeeper that we've gone with for now. So it's Anthony Nash in the cornerback. It's Noel Connors, Owen O'Donnell, Ollie Canning, and in the half backline of Tony Brown, Ken McGrath, and Matt O'Hanlon.
Break down that half backline. Do your worst.
Oh, not a hope. Right, midfield now. Oh my God.
This is pretty awful now because you're looking at Brick Walsh, Jamie Byrne, who we haven't discussed yet. One of the viewers there says Mike Houlihan, absolute, just a warrior midfield. Kevin Moore. Who else are we looking at here around the midfield? Donald O'Grady from Limerick definitely is definitely worth a mention. Again, Limerick weren't exactly lighting it up throughout most of his career, but
did he do his best stuff in the half forward line? I know he played both.
Played a bit of half back, I think, at times as well. Definitely a lot of versatility around there. Anyway, one of the viewers mentioned Irla Tanyan would have been, centre back out around midfield. Obviously, won an All-Star there as well. Diarmuid O'Keefe from Wexford would deserve a mention. In recent years, again, a guy who was even playing well at times last year in a team that wasn't maybe firing unbelievably well. Those guys definitely all worth a mention. Going to be difficult. Like again, are we going to leave out John Milan or Dan Shanahan to include Brick Walsh or Jamie Byrne at midfield?
Oh, yeah, it's the Waterford conundrum that we keep talking about.
Yeah.
Take Connors out and put Brick in, says Liam Ryan.
We might have to look. We might have to look back. We might have to look. I'll put you this way, Shane. If we just step ahead for a second, do Dan Shanahan and John Milan have to be on your team?
Well, definitely John Milan.
Okay.
And then Dan Shanahan is right there as well.
It's funny you say that, and like Shanahan is the one of the two that was a hurler of the year. Like,
oh God, yeah.
You know
but
what I mean?
Is Milan a little bit like Gooch in that, you know, body of work, there needs to be a hurler of the year in there.
Yeah. I know there should have been. He was a 5-time All-Star. I think put Milan in. I think you can't. I don't think you can leave Dan out either. To be honest with you.
Yeah.
So like, if it's gonna, but I'd say in saying that, I don't know. I don't think you can leave Brick out either.
And then Owen Kelly was better than Dan, lads, says Liam Ryan.
Yeah.
James Ryan was another man I was going to bring up, and Paul Ryan for Limerick. Like Paul Ryan is very unlucky to do that. Paul Brown very unlucky to do that cruciate.
Yeah, involved in 18 though, would have been part of that extended panel, so he would have his All-Ireland medal.
Ryan O'Dwyer.
He was vice captain. Paul Brown was vice captain in 2018.
He was, yeah. Ryan O'Dwyer, Paul Ryan, and Conal Keeney mentioned by the Red Lad T. Paul Flynn better than Shanahan, says Flash.
Now, see, this is the thing, right? If you're talking about talent, Paul Flynn had more talent, we'd say, than Dan Shanahan. I don't think that's been mean to Dan Shanahan. Paul Flynn is one of the most talented players of all time. But like Dan's ability to get goals and get big goals, and I think like consistently throughout a career, Dan delivered more for longer than Paul Flynn. And that's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, Brian Kennedy says here, midfield, Jamie Barron and Brick, McCrabb, Liam Rush, Darragh Fitzgibbon, Dee O'Keefe, All-Stars at midfield. Yeah, Alan McCrabb won that All-Star. Yeah, of course he did. Paul Flynn mentioned Brown was supposed to be captain before the cruciate. Jim Bob, yeah, James Ryan was really good. Andrew O'Shaughnessy is a must. Paul Flynn was a magician. My head is wrecked with cheat. Don't worry, we have our own heads wrecked here as well. Right, okay, midfield. Let's see, midfield. Like, has Darragh Fitzgibbon done enough? He's only been there for 4 seasons. I don't think we can
I like the Brick has to be in, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. But
like I'll put it to you this way: to have Brick on our team, he can play midfield, centre back, or centre forward.
So he offers us that versatility.
He offers us that Ken McGrath versatility.
Yeah, Ken McGrath, we could throw him up centre forward if we wanted to. So we've now picked our 5 Waterford lads, right? So does that mean, because some people are going to say straight away, there's no way that Noel Connors, for example, can be in ahead of Dan Shanahan, former hurler of the year. So we might even have to do a rejig there if the comments come in telling us we're wrong. We rate him highly. We rate him Austin Gleeson. Highly.
Yeah, hurler of the year.
Austin Gleeson, oh my God. Like if you were, Austin Gleeson is the one modern day Waterford hurler that would fit most easily in the Maverick generation of the mid-noughties.
Yeah, no, that's true. The only thing I'd say about Austin Gleeson is if you take out that 2016 year, that was when his hurler of the year was won. That was when his sole All-Star was won as well. So like Milan has 5 All-Stars. Brick has, I think, 4. Shanahan has, I think, 3 and a hurler of the year. Tony Brown is a hurler of the year as well, by the way, in 1998. You know what I mean?
We can't count 98.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. Tony Brown won a Munster in 2010 and was still hurling up until about 7 or 8 years ago as well. Noel Connors fits in perfectly in the balance of the team. Like he does, because he's an out-and-out cornerback. Like we're not putting Tony Brown cornerback. That's not the way it works. But I think you have to put Brick in. I think you have to put Dan in as well. And I think we have to. I think those 6 are an absolute must. And then we have to work back and take one out.
Yeah. Do you know Austin Gleeson's only just gone 26?
It's mad, isn't it? It's mad.
Did James Woodlock win an All-Star?
No.
09 he would have been close. He was obviously injured in 2010. I don't think so.
Yeah, but he would have been part of the panel in 2010 because remember him on the stage for the homecoming. I think he had a few drinks in him.
Could we ever see a midfield tag team of the Saint and Verney, the real brothers of destruction? Is that a?
That's wrestling. Yeah, that's the Undertaker and Kane. Who's the holding midfielder And who's the up and down?
If you had to go back many years ago now, I would have been up and down. But yeah, I wouldn't trust you to hold the defence either, because would you be able to get up and cover? And no, I wouldn't think so. It's hard to see you being picked in a two-man midfield.
You're just going to go one-man midfield. I've no problem doing all that miserable stuff where you don't touch the ball, but everyone else flourishes. So you can hit your 5 points and then give me a nod in the man when you're giving your man in a match interview after.
I wonder, would anyone who's played with me think that I'd actually score 5 points? I doubt it. Lee Chin is in it for me, says Flash. Show some respect to the Wexford boys. Paddy Purcell, Lee Chin has to be in.
Show some respect to the Wexford boys. We have a Wexford player mentioned at number 7.
Yeah. Look, does Lee Chin get in for you?
Hold on a second now. We need to pick our second midfield man.
One second now.
We need to pick our second midfield player first.
Okay.
So, and this is to do with the balance of the team, as well. And it has to be. Yeah, I'm happy with that, to be honest with you. Yeah, I'm happy. Yeah,
do people agree with that, Doyle O'Grady? Is there someone we're missing from maybe? I see Erlatanian was mentioned earlier as a halfback, but his best year, as far as I was concerned, was 2012 when he was brilliant on
the Managerial game, wasn't he?
He was, yeah, he was brilliant. I think he went toe to toe with Richie Hogan that day and won that duel. He was really, really good. Definitely, yeah. So Brick and Doyle O'Grady midfield move on, says Dennis Noonan.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. And without being smart, you have 2 absolute warriors there as well. And Doyle O'Grady, while Brick mightn't be the one that hits the points from distance, Doyle O'Grady definitely could hit points from distance there. So it's good balance to it as well.
Brian Kennedy said, Austin and Dan, the only 2 since 2000 to win Hurler the year and no All-Ireland. Tony the only other one. That's an interesting point. Martin Furlong, Shane Dooley, for a mention, Offaly were rubbish, but he has always been a player who could have played for a top team.
There was a spell there for in around when we played Galway in 2010, probably 09, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, around those years in particular, where Shane was at an unbelievable level and was putting up ridiculous scores. Obviously, people would look and see there was a big tally the freeze or whatever, but he was hitting, routinely hitting 1-3 or 1-4 in Offaly teams that weren't exactly lighting it up. So yeah, there was a period there where he was absolutely unbelievable.
And I think he had about 20 championship goals at the top level, which
he's high up as well in the overall scoring records. I think he's in the top 10 at the moment still.
Yeah, you definitely can't be too far off it. I might look that up while you maybe suggest 1 or 2 options for the half forward line.
Yeah, I'm happy with that midfield now, I have to say. The forward options, I had a dummy a dummy forward line named out here. It was Dan Shannon, Paul Flynn, Owen Kelly, John Milan, Patrick Horgan, and Andrew O'Shaughnessy. 4 of them are Waterford. So obviously that's not going to be the case. Just an interesting question for any viewers out there. Because Kilkenny have won so many All-Irelands, we haven't mentioned anyone for Kilkenny yet. But is there anybody in the last 6 years in particular that you think, anyone that's played for Kilkenny in the last 6 years that wasn't there in 15 that you think merits a mention? Is there any other time in the last? There's hardly a player that falls into that bracket in Kilkenny that missed out on an All-Ireland, but was really good for a couple of years. So it'd be interesting to see what people say.
Or tip from 2008 to 2002 to 2009. There's probably a few players whose entire career was in that period. But then, Tip were, kind of generally not that good. So it's hard to see who would be. Owen Cody mentioned here by Flash, Patrick Horgan. Obviously, Patrick. Well, I just put Patrick Horgan in here and less of the message.
Yeah, you have to put him in edge of the square.
I will. Okay. Well, I might put him in number 15, actually.
Why?
Because I'd see him as more of a corner forward for most of his career, rather than, I know he's more full forward now, but it's sort of 2-man inside lines is what everyone plays. I would have always seen him as a number 15.
Patrick Horgan and John Milan inside.
Yeah, not bad, is it?
I actually think we're picking.
Sounds like my brother's inter-county jobs for his career.
I think we're actually picking a team to go out and play a match here, and I like it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the class of the men you're dealing with here. Now,
the only thing I'd say about that is we might be moving Horgan to 14 yet, and the other corner forward could be coming out.
Okay.
Just leave it open-ended. Other players that deserve a mention: Conor McDonald, Damien Hayes definitely does. Must check him how many All-Stars he has. Definitely at least one, but I think he might have 2. He has 3 All-Stars.
Yeah. Eugene Cloonan, Ger Farher, Kevin Broderick, only Galway forwards worth to mention. Cloonan in, to be honest, says ML89.
Yeah, Eugene Cloonan was class. Fairness, he was so talented. Did we see it for long enough at county level, county senior level? Did we see it? Did we see it for long enough? I'm not sure. Just a couple of other guys, Shane, that deserve mention. I mentioned Conor Mack, Lee Chin obviously deserves a mention. Seamus Harnedy definitely deserves a shout.
Without doubt.
Has 2, if not 3 All-Stars. If it's up to us, he'll have 3 All-Stars at the end of this year. If it's up to you anyway, he will. He already has 2 on the board, which is fair going already. Tony Griffin from Clare definitely deserves a mention. Had that standout year in particular. Kevin Broderick I had mentioned here as well. That spoon point that he got against Kilkenny will never be forgotten. We kind of mentioned Rhino Dwyer. Conal Keeney was mentioned. I didn't push for Rory Hannafy hard enough for the middle of the field.
Yeah. Are you feeling poor about that now?
Yeah, a bit, yeah.
Are you starting to think, are you going to drop brick on us?
No, I'm not. I'd have no problem putting him in wing back for Matt O'Hanlon though.
Oh wow! What's happening? Did you get a text message?
No. I just forgot about him, to be honest with you. He'd been mentioned earlier in the conversation, but we just went away from him.
But just to mention another Offaly guy here, to come back to Shane Dooley, he's 10th in the all-time scoring rankings. So ahead of him is DJ Carey, Christy Ring, Shane McCallan, Owen Kelly, Eddie Kerr, TJ Reid, Horgan, Shefflin and Canning. So he's ahead of the likes of Nicky Rackard, Joe Dean, Niall Gilligan, Ben O'Connor, Paul Flynn, Tony Kelly, and on a team that was generally, not winning games.
Not bad company to be holding, is it?
Yeah, no, that's very, very impressive. I don't think he's too far off this. Does Damien Hayes get in?
It's not far off. I do want to revise my Rory Hannafy one, I have to say. Rory Hannafy, I have no problem in saying would have fitted in on the great Kilkenny team of the noughties. Absolutely.
What about the great Offaly team of the 90s?
Oh, he would have lorded it on that team. Him playing probably outside of Brian Whelan at midfield, probably would have been playing midfield on that team. But I'd have no problem putting him in a half-back. And it's funny,
give me a highlight reel. Give me a highlight reel of why he just merits it a little bit more.
Obviously 2 All-Ireland club titles with Burr. He would have been consistent.
Can we count that? This isn't about club.
We're not taking in a body of work, no?
I don't think so, because you've just changed the criteria again, you did on Monday.
I think you have to take in a bit of a body of work to it as well. That's why we talk about Brendan Maher. His body of work was cemented by what he did with Boris, in fairness. And when Offaly were beaten by Kilkenny, I think this Kilkenny scored 5-32 in Nolan Park. Rory Hannafy played full back for Offaly, and not one score could be directly or indirectly attributed to coming off him. Not one free, not even an assist off the man he was marking. He was absolutely unbelievable on one of the worst days. Has 3 or 4 Railway Cups with Leinster as well. The Kilkenny boys would talk about him so highly, massively. And these are the elite Kilkenny boys, the best of the best. Loved playing with him in Railway Cup. I'm gonna revise, and I really like Matt O'Hanlon, but I'm gonna revise it. I would love to see Rory Hannafy in on that wing back spot.
So a formal apology to Matt O'Hanlon, Jordan.
Mea culpa, as Pat Spillane would say, mea culpa.
Okay, look, we've got a bit of Offaly in there. Look at that. Doesn't that look sweet?
Imagine if you're somehow able to wangle a Tipperary man in there.
Unfortunately, we win all Ireland's. What can I say? Unfortunately. There's plenty of more comments coming in. Dotsy O'Callaghan, that's a good one. Obviously, really, really good performer for Dublin over the year. Shocks has to be there, says Dennis Noonan. Kevin Moran says Eamon Ray. How about Shane Conway, says Colin O'Donnell. By all accounts, would make most county teams. Just to mention to some of the smaller counties, James Young, Matthew Whelan, Marty Kavanagh, Alan Corcoran, Neil McManus, Brendan Murtaugh. That's true, and there's a chance that maybe 1 or 2 of those will get in. Ollie Moran, lads, definitely. I think we've mentioned him. Let us know if we haven't. I'm pretty sure we did. We never mentioned Wayne McNamara from Limerick at 6. Super player and hardy out. That he definitely was. Best manager who never won in All-Ireland. That's something to talk about. Railway Cups, Jesus, might as well count Sports Day medals. Kevin Moran mentioned. I see Damien Hayes has been mentioned again. Putting Ollie Moran into the half-forward line, Shane. Good man. It's
interesting. Ollie was some warrior, in fairness. I think like we have to pick the half hour line first. If you just bring it up there, so we have Dan in already, don't we?
We do. Oh no, we don't have Dan in at all. We have to drop a Waterford lad if we're doing it.
Right, okay. Like, there's no way like Owen Kelly, Waterford, and Dan Shannon. Like what? Like we can't just have one Waterford lad in the forward line. Like Dan's goals, Dan's goals ghosting in behind those goals against Cork. She scored a crazy amount of goals in the 07 championship. Like,
would you be more inclined to play Dan Shanahan in the half forward line or the full forward line here if you were playing him? Because I like the idea of Hoggy and Milan either side of him.
Yeah, I'd probably it's a difficult one. I probably would mix him between the two. I'd probably have him out in the half line for puck outs, but I gladly would have him in the edge of the square at different times. Like, was anyone better at that catch behind the full back than Dan? He just would ghost in at the back, and because he was catching on the turn, if he caught the ball, it was like
TJ Reid's pretty good at it.
Yeah, TJ Reid is pretty good at it as well. But I don't know if anyone's ever been better at it, that close to the goal to actually catch a ball and be gone in on goal.
Okay. So we're putting Dan Shanahan in here.
I think we are, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to put him in the edge of the square, Dan the man. So that's, and look, are we agreed that Noel Connors is the one losing out?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. What about Shane O'Neill? Yeah, is he getting the conversation?
Don't know if I don't.
Damien on rail?
We can only take Noel out if what's coming in, if we're really happy with what's coming in to replace him.
We can only take Noel out if we're
if we're really happy like with the cornerback that's coming in to replace him, like
sure, we can only have 5 Waterford, and you've made it clear you don't want to drop Ken McGrath, Tony Brown.
Yeah, no, I don't, and that's fair enough. But we're not like having Noel Connors cornerback. I'm so happy with my team. We can't bring somebody in there like for the sake of the balance of the team. Unless we're bringing someone in cornerback that we're like unbelievably happy with. We're not pigeonholing someone in. Like, for example, Matt O'Hanlon can't go in cornerback.
Yeah, I agree. No, we need a cornerback playing there. But who's last in the pecking order between Noel Connors, Ken McGrath, Tony Brown, Michael Brick Walsh, Dan Shanahan, or Milan? Who's the sixth in the pecking order there? Because they're out of the team.
Well, Noel Connors is the sixth of that group.
Yeah, unfortunately, look, he's brilliant, and this is obviously a cream of the crop type team. So I'm sure he knows where we're coming from here. It's a compliment to even get mentioned in this team, obviously.
Yeah,
lads, how do you have Owen O'Donnell in there? Says Pure Hatchet. We did explain that already. If you could flick back, Dara Ryan, Wexico, all-star cornerback. Should there be no Wexford player in this team? Should there be no Wexford player? Like, does Dara Ryan deserve a mention, or are you thinking more number 3 for him?
I would have been thinking more number 3, but does he have enough done? Does he have enough done since the millennium? I remember him playing in 02 and still been very good, but I could be wrong in saying like he came in not long after the All-Ireland success in 96. I might be discrediting him a small bit. I'm just going to check about him here. But if Dara Ryan had enough done since the millennium, would it suffice or work to put Owen O'Donnell cornerback and Dara Ryan fullback?
I'd be more looking at Shane O'Neill here for cornerback.
That high up?
Yeah, but Fergal Moore. We've wronged Fergal O'Moore here.
Fergal O'Moore. Does Dave Collins deserve to come into the conversation at cornerback then as well?
Well, would you see him more as a wingback or a cornerback?
Yeah, he would have played a bit of both. Might have been playing cornerback in 05 if I check it up now in a second. Are we been generous? And I mean this in the nicest way possible, but are we been generous to Fergal Moore?
Well, he did win an All-Star. He captained them to the Leinster title in 2012.
Yeah.
In the first half of the drawn All-Ireland final in 2012, he won 8 out of 9 balls that went in between him and Shefflin, and then not keeping that matchup, lost Galway to All-Ireland. I'm not saying he would have won the second half against him, but like, you don't change a lad who's going well on someone, or you don't allow the opposition to make that change. Brian Kennedy says Seamus Hickey, he did win an All-Star or an All-Ireland in 2018. He was part of that panel. So I'm starting to lean towards Fergal Moore.
Poor old Nolly Connors. Jenny Mac.
Well, look, we said 5. We knew that this was going to happen. So what do you do?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay with Fergal Moore in that case.
Fergal Moore, okay. Very good player. Very, very good
Yeah,
player.
very good player, yeah. Fairness.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
he's still playing. I think he was midfield for Turlock in the Galway County final last year, and he's the guts of 40 at this stage, I'd say.
He's 38, 39. 39, yeah. Just gone. Yeah. Young man as far as I'm concerned. Shane O'Neill all day. I was pushing hard for Shane O'Neill.
Shane O'Neill's career ended sooner than it should have had.
Oh my God.
Oh, what a shout.
How did we forget Keith Rossiter?
I kind of knew there was a glaring omission. And Keith Rossiter's at number 2 as well. Jesus, you're after wronging Fergal Moore.
I'm sorry. Look, I'm sorry. Keith Rossiter's going in. What do you think?
Big fan of Keith Rossiter, yeah.
Is he going in for you?
Yeah, he's going in for me, yeah.
Sorry, Fergal. I'm sure you're not going to
Hurling podcast, you are the man.
So sometimes we have to take our baiting, don't we?
Yeah, sometimes you do, in fairness, yeah.
Yeah. The lads have said multiple times, it is 21st century players, lads. The lack of Limerick Green is very upsetting. I'd say the fact that there's so many Celtic crosses flying around now, they're happy enough. Paul Shelley would solve it, lads. He'd solve it at 14 too.
He'd solve a lot of problems for you. Where is the Shellmanator now?
Yeah. Where are the comments? So we're back into the forward line now. We've got that back line rejigged a little bit. I think we're both fairly happy with it now. Not everyone will agree with every name there, but we have kind of tried to justify all those selections. Anthony Nash, Keith Rossiter, Owen O'Donnell, Ollie Canning, Tony Brown, Ken McGrath, Rory Hannafy, midfield of Brick and Dodge. That's a nice combination of midfield, Brick and Dodge.
Jesus. Imagine the amount of work that they will get through that will allow other lads to go to town. In fairness, big time. Marty Kavanagh was mentioned that there's the Shellmanator. He's here. All right, the Shellmanator.
Weaker counties like Antrim, Wexford and Cork. Weaker county like Cork. Underrepresented. Too many Waterford lads out of sympathy. Pat Cronin mentioned, he had some good games. Ger Farrer all day long, did the damage. Did he do it for enough of years?
Yeah, he was brilliant in 05. He's still playing with Castlegar now and still lighting it up. I think I do agree with some of the comments there. Andrew O'Shaughnessy is probably hard done by. And I'm wondering, should we be looking at Dan in the half forward line, and like Damien Hayes is missing out here. Is Damien Hayes a potential wing forward, or is he just a corner forward?
Yeah, this is a disaster now. Actually, who else is in the conversation? You made a note of a few players, didn't you?
Yeah, Owen Kelly, Waterford, but there's no more Waterford fellas in the conversation. Can I just say, Jamie Barron was hard done by at midfield in many ways as well. He's obviously a brilliant player. Was nominated for Hurler of the Year too. Other players in the forward line: Lee Chin, Conor MacDonald, Seamus Harnedy, I think, who comes into the conversation. Tony Griffin, Damien Hayes, Eugene Cloonan. Eugene Cloonan. Yeah, there's a lot of options. Conal Keeney, Austin Gleeson. They were the main ones. Andrew O'Shaughnessy. Yeah, they're the main ones that we have at the moment anyway. Yeah,
Eugene Cloonan played up until 2008. So he does have a fair bit of a track record in there, and people are mentioning him.
I think you kind of have to look at, like, for that inside line in particular, who are you picking? Is Damien Hayes solely been picked as a full forward or in the full forward line? If he is, then is he going in instead of... It's probably like between him, Shaughnessy and Eugene Cloonan. Yeah, Hayes wing forward All-Star 2010, and I know he definitely did... I remember him roaming a nice little bit, wearing a corner forward jersey, but roaming a nice bit in 2012. So that, like, you could pretty much play him anywhere in the forward line, I'd say. Yeah, I think you could. I think he'd do massive damage at wing forward, I have to say. Brian Kennedy says Tony Griffin 10, Harnedy 11, Dan to go to 12, meaning Shocks to go 15 and Hoggy 14. I'm all about the balance of the team, and I think you can't have three lads of similar stature in the full forward line. Yeah. So having Dan in there or Eugene Cloonan or whoever does offer an awful lot, but we have to make sure that on our half forward line we have at least two really good ball winners. At least. Do we count Harnedy as part of that? Tony Griffin? Yeah, I think Harnedy is in. I think Harnedy is in the half line, I have to say. Head of Chin, Lee and Griffin. Harnedy's a two-time All-Star. as you say, he was good in the All Ireland final. He was one of the few that was good in a bad, really bad Cork performance. He's done it. He's done it for Cork in the half hour line for the guts of a decade now. What's he there? He's there since 12 or 13 anyway. 13 could have been his first year. He's definitely a good ball winner anyway. He's be a massive outlet. I'd have no issue with moving Dan to half forward either.
Yeah, no, we can definitely do that.
More number 11.
PJ Banville, what a heart. Stephen Banville.
Remember Stephen Banville and Declan Fanning pulling at each other's helmets, and someone nearly lose an ear or something.
Yeah. Declan Fanning got his cut, and he wore sort of a cup addition to his helmet the next day out. O'Shaughnessy was Limerick's best forward in the naughty, says Patrick Coleman. Second highest Galway scorer of all time. Think he has the second highest points per game ratio of all time, and then has the highest scoring points per ratio in the All Ireland Club Championship. I'm sure that's referring to Damien Hayes.
Clunan.
Yeah, Patrick Hickey, Damien Hayes has to be there. Rory Jacob, Barry Foley won't get in, but deserves a mention. Cathal Naughton, Eugene Clunan, that is. Yeah, sorry, he was referring to Eugene Clunan. And you did talk about the club stuff earlier.
Yeah, no, like At and Rye were brilliant. In fairness, and Clunan was one of the main men behind that. I do think
I'm bringing Dan out.
Yeah, I have no problem playing Dan Dan wore 10, didn't he? Would it be right in saying?
I can picture him wearing 11, 12, 10, any of them.
Okay.
I'm going to give him 12 because I think 12 suited.
Yeah,
it doesn't suit everyone.
I wouldn't have him centre forward. I like him coming in on the wing in behind, kind of, you know?
Yeah, okay, right. So that opens up a full forward slot. Possibly, I feel like we're moving towards Eugene Clunan.
Yeah, it's between Eugene Clunan, Damien Hayes has to get into the forward line somewhere.
Well, he'd be number 12 then if he's getting in here. Because we've already said that we don't want three smaller lads on the inside.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Okay. We're getting there.
Yeah. Shamie Hannity, centre forward. You're looking at Shamie Hannity, Ollie Moore,
Lee Chin,
Tony Griffin.
I keep seeing Conor Lahan being mentioned here, but I'm not quite sure that we can get Conor in here.
Conor Lahan win an All-Star?
Maybe 2013. Let me look it up.
I'm not sure if he did. For a team,
he didn't.
I don't think he can come into the conversation. And that's like Cork were in an All-Ireland final and he didn't win an All-Star. So that's why it's okay for other guys who weren't in or around that and didn't win an All-Star. Just thinking, is there anybody else that we've left out?
Rory Jacob was very, very good. Andrew O'Shaughnessy, class, yeah. Andrew O'Shaughnessy has to be mentioned here a lot, which he has been mentioned a lot. Ollie Moore. Does Ollie Moore like the battering ram at centre forward? Oh man,
Ollie Moore would do so much work for the forwards around him. Tony Carmody was brilliant. Great comment from Patrick. I thought he wasn't around on the scene maybe as long as he should have been, but he was an absolute bull of a forward as well. In fairness, Ollie Moore would I'm all about picking a team. You can't have 6 flashy lads in the forward line. No way, it doesn't work. You pick a team that's going to war in the morning.
So who's centre and full forward then?
Are we looking at centre forward is probably between Seamus Hannity, Lee Chin and Ollie Moore?
I think we are, yeah. I think we are.
Janie Mack.
Do you know what? I'd take Lee Chin. I think he can win a ball. He can go up and catch a 50-50. Very good solo on that pace with the ball. He's added the free taking in the last couple of years.
Now we have a free taker inside. Don't mind that free taking.
I know, but from distance. Yeah, but look, if I'll tell Horgan, just stay inside. There's one from his own half back line. I'm going to allow Chin to take this one.
We've Ken McGrath from distance, Shane.
Yeah.
We've Anthony Nash from distance.
Look, I'm putting Lee Chin in here.
I think you could throw a blanket over the three of them. So I'm fine with Chin. Yeah, I'd say he offers a lot of different things to the team.
Yeah, he's a good joke now, to be fair. So then, full forward. Look, come here. What about the Antrim lads? What about Mouse Kavanagh? What about some of the Laois lads? Paddy Purcell?
Sure. Paddy Purcell's been Laois's most consistent player over the last 5 or 6 years. Marty Kavanagh.
Liam Watson.
Just does it. Sure, Watson was class. And if you're looking at club performances, that All-Ireland club performance in 2012 is huge as well. The full forward slot is It's just like, what way are we looking at? A Eugene Cloonan type player? Could Seamus Harnedy play full forward and come out?
He played more out the field. Come on.
It's
the
funny.
Messi of hurling, Shane Conway, says John O'Sullivan.
Yeah, sure. Deadly player. He, like, fair to say, he definitely won't be winning All Ireland. Of all the players that are currently playing that could still win one, he definitely won't be. But like we debated like how good he is before, and like I imagine Cork would love to have him. They would love to have him. I just imagine Seamus Harnedy moving out from full forward and playing 4 across the half forward line, 3 mad ball winners, and Damien Hayes sniping around him to break off the breaks and running in. Two man inside full forward line. John Milan and Patrick Horgan.
I'm thinking Eugene Cloonan.
It's funny, you were trying to wangle Harnedy into the All-Star team, and I wasn't having it. Now I'm trying to wangle Harnedy into this team, and you're not having it.
Are you going to be looking to get Shane Dooley in here?
I think the quality of the opposition he's coming up against will probably edge him out.
There's a couple of people pushing for me to get in full forward here.
Oh, can we have an impact sub? Best impact sub never to win an All Ireland Senior Hurling medal. We'll put you in.
Yeah, come on.
Who are
Dooley's number 10 in the all-time scorers.
Okay, Shane would be quite similar to the 2 lads in the full forward line already.
Yeah, that is true.
I think, like, and I'm all about picking a team. I'd be happy with Eugene Cloonan. It would offer just something completely different in there, different than the other 2 boys. Imagine the boys hovering in around him as well.
Yeah, I think we pretty much have our team now. Geez, that is a serious team.
It's class, in fairness now.
It really, really is. Let me just see. I'll put it up on the screen there. Will you just run through it?
Yeah. Anthony Nash 1, Keith Rossler 2, Owen O'Donnell 3, Ollie Canning 4. Jeez, the mobility in that full back line is unbelievable. Tony Brown 5, Ken McGrath 6, Rory Hannafy 7. I'm just not sure how you're going to break down that line, to be honest. Rick Walsh and Doyle O'Grady midfield. Has there ever been a more hard-working midfield pair? I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I think it's unreal. Half-forward line, Damien Hayes, Lee Chin, Dan Shanahan, mixture of ball winners and pace, John Milan, Eugene Cloonan, Patrick Horgan, Jenny Mack. Donny Ryan, Conor Heaney said, I am a big Donny Ryan fan from 07. Big fan.
Too old, too slow, too far?
Yeah, that's the one, yeah.
The Tanto Halpine, pure head. No, he won in All Ireland.
No, he was only there for 03, got an All-Star and then left.
Right, okay, yeah, sorry, I was wrong with that.
Andrew O'Shaughnessy is very hard done by.
Yeah, there's a few players there who justifiably feel hard done by.
But I'll put it to you this way. The way O'Shaughnessy would have got into this team is if we put Horgan at 14 and O'Shaughnessy at 13. But then I think we have 3 very similar players in the full forward line. Whereas now, I actually think I'm really happy with the balance of that now, I have to say.
We do have somebody who's, after commenting a couple of times, Martin Furlong's the latest anyway, saying, lads, who manages the team?
So it obviously has to be a manager who hasn't won an All Ireland.
I think so.
Okay. Jenny Mack. Kieran Carey wasn't there long enough, lads, I think, to be honest with you.
Yeah, from the 21st century.
From the 21st century. Who manages the team? Like, who are we looking at?
Conor Lane. You know, who got to All Ireland finals?
Yeah. Liam Cahill.
Justin McCarthy.
Yeah. Pat Flory.
Richie Bennis,
yeah.
Matty Kenny. If you're going to include club stuff.
Yeah.
With Pádraig Gill.
Oh, best manager. Jeez, that's a good one. We'll have to think about. We'll have to be really happy with who we get now.
I feel Justin McCarthy, because the most thrilling hurling we've seen in the 21st century from a team that hasn't won an All Ireland had to be Waterford. But actually, JBM has mentioned he won it in 1999. But
Shane.
Derek McGrath, yeah?
Will the Waterford boys play under Justin?
You didn't go there.
I'm just saying. If we're playing, I'm just saying. Like,
well, look, the best hurling we ever saw from Ken McGrath, Tony Brown, Brick, Dan, and Milan was all under him.
Shane, I'm not disagreeing with you, but that ended sourly. So could he manage this team?
Jesus. I mean, talk about putting a sour flavour on this.
I'm only being realistic. I'm trying to put a realistic slant on this.
Dalo.
Oh, Dalo's a good shout. Obviously brought Clare to the 2002 All-Ireland final. Eamon
Anthony
O'Shea.
Cunningham.
Eamon O'Shea is a good one. Never won All-Ireland as a manager. Cunningham, yeah.
Some team boys, not a wristy hurler or cat on the team. What will we have next? Blue Blackbirds. Great stuff, guys. Yeah, of course. Pretty much any Kilkenny hurler that was going to come into the conversation for this has won an All-Ireland, so they were excluded for that. Yeah, Dalo's been mentioned again. Eamon O'Shea has to be a shout, says ML89. Pat Joe Whelan.
Pat Joe, yeah, of course. There's club stuff is coming into it, definitely. Geez, that's difficult. I feel like my Justin McCarthy comment has really put, I think you were just like, okay, we're done. We have it all sorted.
You hurt me with that one. I don't know.
Shane, the only thing I would say that as well is, of all the names that I've mentioned there, Justin never got Waterford to an All-Ireland final.
Yeah, okay, they did lose. Yeah, that is fair enough. But over a decent spell, he did some thrilling stuff. Won Munster titles when Waterford hadn't done it for so long. Yeah,
Michael Ryan, Waterford.
Yeah, did some great stuff too. Came in for Westmeath, also very good with them.
Has won a bag of them with the Balnacorty ladies as well.
Yeah, John Allen did win an All-Ireland.
John Allen did win one. Yeah, don't look great. There's a lot of lads out of the equation. You know.
And are you happy to go with Justin McCarthy, or do you think someone's got a slightly better shout?
No, like I think you don't have to give it to somebody that was in an All-Ireland final. Has Dalo for his couple of Dalo taken it into account Clare and Dublin is a fair body of work now.
It is, yeah, and got very close to that Dublin team, which many people wouldn't have fancied.
Imagine Dalo over this team. Like this could be the boys that go for pints after. This would be the best team, the best crack of all time. This squad going for under Dalo. They'll play real swashbuckling stuff. There'll be no need for Alan Markham coming in as sweeper or anything like that. He has all the pieces in play there. I think Dalo is the man.
Oh, it's a tough one. I kind of just feel like the hurling that Waterford played, it almost lifted the country back in the mid-noughties. It was just thrilling stuff. Cork played their part, but they won the All-Irelands.
How about Justin McCarthy as coach, like he was with Cork back in the day?
No, I'm still pushing for Justin McCarthy. I just think the level of hurling they played was just so thrilling to watch. Like, Dalo's teams were good, but I don't know if I enjoyed watching them the same way.
Shane, I don't disagree with you, but what I'm saying is Justin McCarthy was involved with 4 or 5 of these Waterford lads when he was ousted from the role. That's all I'm saying. It's just very difficult to imagine him managing this team.
You're sickening me here.
I'm only saying, like, Justin McCarthy had the Waterford lads playing absolutely unbelievable stuff. I'm pure realism here of what can actually happen. We picked a team that we think could go out and win in the morning, but if some of them have previous issues with the manager, I think Dalo's the man. I have to say, I do. I think he's the man.
Okay, do you know what? There's a lot of comments coming in saying Dalo. We'll agree to disagree. I'll say, for once, I'll just go with Justin McCarthy. You go with Dalo, and we'll both agree that they're both good candidates. Faithful are coming strong. Geez, there's a lot of club stuff going on this weekend. We won't really go into it too much at the moment because I think as the weeks go by, there's a bit more to talk about. But we know there's Dublin club action this weekend. There's Limerick club action, Antrim club action. There's a lot to look at. But it's only as a week or two passes by that we'll really get our teeth stuck into that. So I think that'll do us for today, will it?
Yeah. We'll do a Waterford 15 to have one on Ireland one of these days as well.
By God, we will, of course. Just a reminder, if you're a regular watcher, even if you're not, please do subscribe to the channel, especially on YouTube. Click the button in the bottom right-hand corner or hit the subscribe button and the bell notification for reminders. It helps the channel. The more people that subscribe, the more that it's recommended to other people to subscribe that are into GA. So that would be really helpful and it's free to do it. Also a reminder, if you want to get the audio podcast, it'll be at patreon.com/OurGame, $5 a month, and you can support the channel. Michael Verney, thanks very much. We'll do it again.
Cheers, channel. Mind yourself.
The Hurling Show, brought to you in association with Torpy. Torpy are leading hurling into a new future with Bamboo, a revolutionary hurley created using their unique engineered hurling performance know-how. Already being used by many inter-county players, Torpy's Bamboo is highly sustainable, offers players greater striking distance and a more consistent balance every time, without compromising on natural feel. Check them out on the Torpy website and in the link below, and enter the promo code OurGame to get yourself 10% off.